All right, good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. I'd like to open the meeting with a roll call.
Roll call.
Starting with Barney, if you're out there.
Yes, hi, Arnold here.
Modell here. When did we institute a roll call?
Snell here.
Stevens here.
Triola here.
It's like school. Did you start that, Scott?
No, we have to do it when you have a remote
Whenever we
person.
have a remote person.
All right, so let me run through the agenda. There's a little bit of modification to the agenda tonight. We're going to open with community input, followed by appointments and resignations, followed by a discussion of the street sign proposed program. Then 7:30, refer a proposed zoning bylaw amendment to the planning board. Then we were scheduled originally to hear from the Historical Commission on the demo delay bylaw presentation. They will not be presenting tonight. They've requested to present on the 26th, so we will see if we can accommodate that. As time allows, we will instead at 7:45 move to warrant and minutes approval, followed by liaison reports, proclamation, and if time allows, begin the town administrator report. At 8:15, we will do the Tecton Fire Station presentation, followed at 9:30. If we could just mute Barney, I think, sorry. Followed at 9:30 by the special town meeting discussions to talk about logistics, and then the town administrator report at 9:45, and close with community input as time allows. So with that, let's open it up to community input. We'll begin with the room. Does anyone in the room have a community input? Yep, Mark.
Mark Bernstein, 43 Peter Hans Road. I just wanted to follow up a couple select boards ago, right after there was the Concord Carlisle get-together about anti-Semitism and prompted by the suit against the Concord school system, including the high school. And I sent a letter, an email, but these days that's a letter, to the select board and to the school committee, and requested two things. Requested two things. One, that the select board appoint somebody who's beyond just counting on the school committee, the regional school committee, but somebody from the select board to go to every following meeting of that would pertain to this subject, mostly hosted by the Concord system. And then to also that the select board ask the school committee to provide to the public data on any anti-Semitic or other similar crimes or incidents that have occurred in the Carlisle public schools, and I haven't heard anything back from anyone. So I guess my question is, should I hear something? Would I expect to get a reply from the school board that, yes, we received your thing, we've entered it in the public record, and we intend to, yes, to follow up on those?
So I will respond to that comment. I met with Brian Waterston, and I believe he emailed
He sent
you.
a note, but it was, I like Brian, he's a nice guy,
Yeah.
but it was devoid of content.
Well-
He said he was gonna be the one that would be the lead. It's not, I asked specifically that somebody from the select board.
Yeah, as a liaison, I'll be attending all
Okay.
those meetings, and then
Okay.
for our action item, they'll be on our September 23rd agenda to
Okay.
discuss those matters, some of the statistics, and report out on those incidents. And
For the Carlisle
for the
school
Carlisle
system?
schools,
Okay.
and part of that timing is
That's fine.
just by virtue of
That's
their
fine.
meeting schedule.
Okay,
So,
all right, I didn't get that response. Nobody told me that.
okay.
All right.
I thought that was included in the response. So I'll double
I'll go
back
back and
on that
check,
and make
but it-
sure that that's in there.
Okay.
So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Yes.
Hi, Greg Adkins, 40 Hillside Road. First meeting. I'll try to keep it brief. This is in regards to the MBTA Communities Act. Last Monday, August 4th, I shared a letter of concern with you select board members as well as the planning board members, so maybe you've seen it, maybe you're familiar by now, about some concerns specific to our neighborhood, which is essentially between East Street and Lowell, behind St. Irene's. And since that time, the plan apparently changed. For example, my house, which was not a pre-1962 dwelling, is now part of the list identified for one of the zoning overlays. And I just found out about that via letter Saturday, and then the planning board meeting voted to include that in the memo that you're going to be reviewing and deciding on tonight. So myself, some others in the meeting, I think were a little bit blindsided by the changes. We're already concerned, you know, based on our letter of concern that we shared. And then, you know, I and some others wrote a letter that I think was shared, an email that was shared with you all today. So I don't know if you have any questions, but just wanted to raise that during this portion of the meeting and start there.
Thank you. We did receive your email, and we do have an agenda item at 7:30 where we'll briefly discuss not the different scenarios and properties, but a procedural request from the planning board. So I'm hoping that at 7:30 we can clarify some of what's being asked of the select board tonight.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I correct the record?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess somehow I missed Brian, I misread it, or I didn't read it, but now I just looked very quickly at Brian's, Watterson's email from a couple weeks ago, and he did address both questions.
Okay.
And so my apologies.
No
I missed
problems.
that.
Thank you. Additional comments from the room, and then we'll go online. Seeing none, we'll ask for any community comments from remote participants. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to appointments and resignations. And in terms of appointments, Barney, I think there was one appointment you wanted to bring forward regarding the LSC. Is she up there? There she is. Oh, she's outside now. I think she's fading in and out.
She's muted.
Yeah, if you can unmute Barney.
She's frozen. She might be frozen.
Yeah. Well, I'll open it up. There was a appointment request for Alex Pera to the LSC. That appointment was supported by both CONSCOM and the LSC. I don't believe the materials were included in the packet, but Barney had requested that the select board consider that appointment tonight. And Barney, if you can hear me, I think your feed is frozen, so maybe try muting your video and doing audio only. While she works on that, do you just want to quickly run through, we did have some staff appointments in the COAHS. You just
Sure.
want to run down those?
So we have two COHS van drivers that will be starting. One is Augustin Ramos and another is Bob Walhagen. They're both Carlisle residents, actually, so we're excited to have them join us.
Good.
And then I will also have a new finance and HR assistant on my team, so we're very excited, and she's also starting next week, so.
Who is she replacing? Is she replacing someone?
Anish Coates.
Oh, okay, so the
yes.
honest replacement.
Yeah, so we're very excited. I'm especially very excited to have the team full again.
Okay, and did you have any information on the nomination Barney was bringing forward? Was there an application?
I don't have more details. I know she mentioned that this request had been made in the past, so it should have been part of that agenda.
Okay.
So.
Why don't we come back to that one?
Yeah.
Let's move forward, and hopefully Barney gets her connection up and running. We will revisit that appointment, and let's, since it's 7:10, let's move on to the street sign program discussion. So if you want to step forward and say your name, address, and kick things off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Russell Ruthin, resident of 136 Pinebrook Road. I'd like to take a few minutes just to read a short statement, including a land acknowledgement, and then we'll talk about the policy. Carlisle is located on the traditional and ancestral lands of indigenous peoples, including the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Wampanoag, and others who lived here for thousands of years. We remember that the lives of our ancestors benefited from their local knowledge of the resources on these lands. We pay respect to the indigenous peoples, past and present, and we honor the land itself, which remains sacred to them. I represent a group of Carlisle residents advocating for a street dedication policy. And in advance of this meeting, we provided the Select Board with a proposal of the policy. I will summarize the key aspects of the proposal following the statement. What we are seeking tonight is a commitment of the Select Board to move forward on drafting a policy and ultimately to adopt the policy in a future meeting. We hope the town of Carlisle might see what other municipalities already understand, that street name dedication is an inclusive and democratic process for honoring the past. This is not an effort to be politically correct, but rather historically accurate. And in the area of honoring indigenous peoples, Carlisle is lagging our neighboring towns. Let's take Acton as an example. Acton has a walking trail, a trail through time, which has interpretive signs providing archaeological information about the indigenous and colonial artifacts found there. The Acton Library has an exhibit based on the artifacts, some 7,000 years old, found at the Pinehawk Archaeological Site, now the Acton Wastewater Treatment Facility. In 2022, the town of Acton approved an archaeological protection bylaw to help preserve indigenous artifacts during new building development. Carlisle strives to be a welcoming community, and we need to understand that welcoming includes not only how we treat those who live here now, but how we honor the past. Although there are many ways we might consider honoring the indigenous peoples of this area, the residents I represent chose street dedication policies because, one, there are many precedents around the country, two, the policies are relatively straightforward, and three, implementation is inexpensive for the municipality. The names of the streets in Carlisle, those that are here today, were generally chosen decades ago, but some of those names no longer reflect the values of the people who live here now. I am quite reluctant to provide even a partial list of problematic names in this open forum, because a discussion of each name would likely be lengthy and derail the primary objective of the group I represent. Instead, we rather put a positive foot forward. The residents of Pinebrook Road would like to be one of the first applicants to the street dedication program with the proposed honorary name of Mickinock Road. The Algonquian word Mickinock means turtle. Turtles are important animals in indigenous cultures, and Pinebrook Road is close to Turtle Rock, a recognized indigenous site in Great Brook Farm. If the initiative is successful, we believe Mickinock would be the very first public road, waterway, trail, hill, or other geographic feature to honor indigenous peoples in Carlisle, the very first. It would be particularly meaningful if the street dedication policy were adopted before April 12, 2028, which marks the 350 years since the end of the conflict here between indigenous peoples and European settlers, the conflict known as King Philip's War or Metacom's Rebellion. And more generally, the success of this initiative might inspire other dedications in town to honor other overlooked individuals or groups. I would now like to take another minute to summarize the 5 key features of the policy for the street dedication program. First, honorary street signs are not replacements, but rather temporary additions, typically for a limited term in different geographic regions, different lengths of time, 10, 20 years. Second, the honorary signs are distinguished by shape, color, and position from the official signs so that the emergency services are not misled. Third, generally, if 2/3 of the owners residing on a street can agree on a name, they would submit an application that would be approved by the select board, which would approve the name unless it was found to lack cultural significance to Carlisle or was deemed obscene, indecent, or profane. Fourth, donations of residents on the street generally cover the complete cost of the sign and installation, generally between $100 and $300. And finally, fifth, honorary names are not permitted on all roads. They are not permitted on what are considered arterial roads, which are streets which go through the town center or crosses town borders or affords a primary mean of access from an arterial street to at least 2 other streets. This is because major roads, as defined there, it would cause too much confusion for emergency services and other reasons. I'm happy to answer your questions, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Barney, can you hear us? You look like I see video in motion.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I had to go back onto my phone. I thought I could get you on my laptop, but
Nope.
anyway, I'm here.
Great.
And I heard the presentation.
Okay. Did you have any comments, Barney? I know you had discussed this a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, maybe I hadn't focused before on the specific purpose in terms of recognizing sort of our, something about our cultural heritage, Carlisle's cultural heritage. And I appreciate that. I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. Russ, what I'm not clear on is how it would work, on a given street, and maybe you could describe how it's done in other towns, but I'm trying to imagine, so you have, let's say you have, 15 homes on a street, and somebody would be the leader and convene them and then propose names, and then there'd be a vote by that group and they would sign something official, and what did you say, it had to have a 50% majority?
2/3.
2/3.
2/3. So, and then, let's say a couple people move away that were in the majority, and so it no longer has the 2/3. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering logistically how the whole thing works administratively, and then is somebody on the street responsible for, organizing that, and then you submit some kind of a formal document to the town hall, to the town administrator, or eventually to the select board for approval? Talk us through a little bit how you see it actually working in Carlisle, let's say, for example, on your street.
Yeah, so many of the towns that I've looked at do it through an application process. So the application has a series of specific questions, the proposed name, its cultural or historical significance, also includes the signatures of the people on that street, who agree to have the honorary street name. That whole application is put together, sometimes with a small fee, a processing fee, which is not the cost that would be covering the sign and so forth. But within that statement and application, the group also agrees to pay for the cost of the sign. That is then probably in Carlisle would probably be submitted, I would guess, to the town clerk, who would then bring it forward to the board, the select board, that would vote on it at an upcoming meeting. Once approved, the group would then be free to contact a contractor, purchase the sign, and obviously put the sign up on the street.
I have 2 questions.
Yep.
One, how many streets in Carlisle would be eligible?
And Russ,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I think she froze again. Oh, no.
Is this a bylaw? What would this be? Would it have to be a bylaw or
don't-
just a policy?
I don't know.
Policy, I would think.
Oh,
My,
Sorry, Barney, you're breaking up
yeah,
again.
let me answer a couple of those. First of all, my understanding was, with discussions with other members of the select board, was that this could be a
Oh,
policy
sorry.
decided just by the select board, that it doesn't have to be a bylaw. So that's the first thing. The second question, I think, was, do you mind repeating the question?
How many streets in Carlisle?
Yeah, how many streets in Carlisle? If I remember off the top of my head, there are roughly 50 streets in Carlisle. Because a lot of them intersect, a lot of them are going to be considered arterial roads, but potentially, I would say, up to 30 streets. Because there are a lot of streets that end, right? They're just single streets, yeah.
Barney,
I
sorry.
would, I would also say, part of my reason for coming here is the hope that I will work with the select board in an upcoming different forum to flush out the details of the policy and then come back. So one of the things for sure that we would do is actually easily detail a list of roads that would be eligible.
Barney, go ahead.
yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, great. Couple things for us. One is, so we would, so
Turn off your video.
you working with whomever, you know, at the select board thing, I don't have a radio on. So would work out the details. And typically in other towns, are the people required to be vote, you know, registered to vote, or children in the household as well as the adults all get a vote, or, you know, how does that part work?
In most town, it's the owner of record of that property. So potentially a
So
lot
it's
of.
one vote,
Well,
one,
potentially,
one vote per property,
one vote per property.
okay. And then
So
what
if
about
there were,
liability?
if there were joint owners, they'd have to agree jointly, yes,
Yeah, but they only get one vote for
Yes.
their house.
yes.
And then what about liability? You're gonna hire a contractor to install it,
Good question.
but what if a contractor, you know, messes up or, you know, hits a gas line or somebody gets hurt in the process of installing it? How does all that work in your mind?
So I think that's a good question, the liability question. However, I do want to remind us that we're talking about installing a street sign. This is, the poles are already there.
Yeah.
It's an existing pole, and we're talking about adding some screws and nuts and bolts and adding it on. So while
Oh, so you're-
I admit there's probably liability there.
Barney, can you try turning off your video, because you keep freezing up and buffering? So maybe just turn off your video.
Sure.
That might help. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, Russ, I did not understand that. I thought you were talking about a separate pole, the way I've seen them in other towns. You know, that just has a little marker at the top that says whatever the memorial name is, but it goes in next to the existing street sign. So you're asking for something different, where our existing street signs would then have an additional sign attached to them below the current street sign. Is that correct?
Correct.
I see.
You mentioned other towns. In the packet, it mentions other cities and other states. How many towns in Massachusetts have such a program or policy in place?
Well, the towns mentioned are the city of Champaign, Illinois, the village of Westchester, Illinois, the city of Clinton, Iowa, the city of Buffalo, New York, the city of Santa Ana, California, the city of Tacoma, Washington. But the answer to your question for tonight is, I don't know.
Because anecdotally, I think Ryan had mentioned that some towns have had this in the past, but have ceased doing it for whatever reason. I don't know why. I'm guessing good intentions with unintended consequences. And so, you know, I like the sentiment of it, and I like the goal of it. I do have concerns about the implementation specifically of
Yeah.
of street signs. I do wonder, does our existing sign policy in town prohibit acknowledging and honoring groups, or, because I do know people can display a sign of a certain size on their property. Would that not be an acceptable way to honor, if we're not changing official street names and this is just a symbolic thing? I would think that people would already have the ability to do that within our current sign policy, would they not?
Potentially, yes. I mean, there are lawn signs, acceptable lawn signs, that can be placed in different places. However, I think you should understand that there's a difference that I'm trying to achieve here between individuals taking action and a public acknowledgement on the part of the town
Right.
of certain individuals and peoples.
But it's not so much a public acknowledgement. We would essentially be implementing a policy that individual neighborhoods would pursue and go through.
But yes,
I
but
don't think the
public
select-
in the sense that the neighborhood is expressing a certain expression.
And my concern is that, similar with our flag policy, if you're going to give latitude to do that,
You have to give everybody.
you have to give within the bounds of obscenity and other things, and then there's a lot of gray area potentially. It's now falling on the select board to make some potentially, sensitive judgments that we've put policies in place to avoid doing, like with our flag policy. So the example you give is a great one of a positive acknowledgement, but there could be examples that other groups wouldn't consider
No, but
positive.
there's also probably people maybe on his street that say, well, why are we changing the name? Like, that name's I grew up with that name.
You're not changing the official name,
What?
right? You're not changing the official street
No,
name.
but
No,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
but then they don't vote for it, David. So I can see that, I think this actually could be something that a neighborhood could rally behind. It could really, get the neighborhood together. I would just like to propose that before it comes before the select board for approval, just route it through the historical commission and the postmaster and the fire department. There's nothing more, how shall I say, culturally insensitive than a group of well-meaning, white neighbors saying this is what we ought to name this street based on our own, limited knowledge of a language. I'm guessing that no one speaks the native language that they would be naming the street after.
Okay, I understand running it through the historical commission and your points, some of your points there. I would also say that the town, by not acknowledging the problems of some of the street names in town, is also making a statement.
That's a separate issue, though. If we have officially named street names that are objectionable in some way, then there's I'm not familiar with the specific process, but there's a process by which to change those names.
If there is such a process, I would welcome a discussion of that.
And is there a policy difference between public and private way? I mean, we have a lot of private
Right.
ways in
Yeah.
town. I have no idea.
I don't know.
What polices them, right, or what
Right.
administers them?
As long as it's limited to historical and cultural, I mean, I think it would be, I would be fine with it, I guess I should say. I know are we voting on anything?
No.
No,
I don't think we're
I'm not
Okay.
asking you
anything
to.
tonight.
yeah.
Yeah, the provision in there, you had mentioned 10 miles radius. I like if I was crafting a policy, I would say it would have to be within Carlisle rather than 10 miles.
I mean, you can't name another town's road.
No, but he's talking about using something that could be within 10 miles.
Oh, like a same name as 10 miles
Well,
away?
no, actually, let Russ, you can.
Yeah, I think
answer
that was the
question.
intent, yeah. I think if I'm
Just to
remembering
make
that
sure
clause
You're not
correctly.
repeating.
I noticed that, thought that would be something to consider, that it should just be Carlisle centric.
There's main
But
streets out there.
I'm, I don't, I think that just has to run through a process here. If this is what people want, I'm not, it's an addition to signs, it's not replacing street signs, it's, honoring heritage, but.
Well, is it though, then you have two names, and I may agree with Christine, like, you gotta think of it.
But have you seen them in other towns?
Oh,
They're
all the
like a
time.
different
I know.
shape. they're
Yeah, you
different-
could do,
they're-
right, so
they're
that, well,
below.
let's be clear then, so it's not changing the official name.
No.
No, this is just a placard of
The
sorts.
Snell Drive, like, for example.
Yeah,
Honor
you
his-
know, well, boy, that has a ring to it. No, I'm kidding. It's,
I understand.
it's a, you know.
If it's not official, my impression of what Russell wrote was that it would be an official name.
No,
No, no,
he
no.
says that explicitly.
No.
Yeah.
Right,
No, this
that's
is
fine.
just a,
Sure.
you know,
I would like to understand, though, where this has been, like, within Massachusetts, where this has been implemented and/or ceased, because to understand some of the case studies of the policies themselves. I mean, if we shouldn't have to start from ground zero with writing a new policy from scratch. There should be examples of this in other towns that we can refer to, and also best practices in terms of guidelines, what worked, what didn't. I think I'd like to see that fleshed out before we would consider making a commitment on it.
And I respect that, and I would expect that. And I would also say that the draft policy that I believe was included was based on another's towns.
right.
But there's no reason why that policy couldn't be made much more suited to the specific needs of Carlisle. It's meant to be a straw man policy.
Right, and it does have a 10-year horizon, or you've suggested between 10 and 20. I would think, you know, a 10-year period so that people could review it in a little shorter order if they had I don't know, if they just decided after a decade that maybe it wasn't, I don't know, they wanted to change it from,
Yeah.
I don't know, something to something else. Anyway, I think you're right to investigate a little bit more. I noticed that in the information we had, the city of Arlington, Texas had suspended public nominations temporarily. So I don't know, and that's all it says, and I thought, well, geez, we should probably understand not necessarily them, but like, what are some of the ramifications of this? Because I think what Scott was saying is we have a flag policy. We spent a lot of time on that and thinking about it, and it's we're in a very politically heated, charged environment now, and it's just adding, we just don't want to bring on new liabilities to the town, I think would be.
And at least this select board has avoided becoming the cultural arbiters of
lightning-
what's
exactly, a
acceptable
lightning
and what's
rod for
not
that.
acceptable. So having very clear guidelines that really minimize that clearly spell out what's allowable and what's not is very important to something like this. Because you don't want, whoever's sitting in these seats to be making arbitrary decisions on some of these things.
But you do have a process.
Yeah,
You get
yeah, clear
2/3, and
process,
it takes
yep.
a lot to get 2/3 of anything to agree,
Not if you
so.
have a small street.
We have
And
two-
again, I think if the historical commission gives it a stamp of approval, I mean, they're,
It sounds like
they're
you-
gonna vet something.
And we're out of time on this discussion, but I think identifying their role in the process, do they review the applicants
Right.
prior to coming to the select board? So I think some of those questions are, what would the checks be along the way so that when it came up for final approval, we know it's gone through the proper vetting?
Okay. I appreciate the time of the board, I appreciate the feedback, and I hope to come back
Yeah.
to you with something successful.
And I appreciate the time you and your neighbors have put into this. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Russ.
Thank you. All right. Julie, 7:30. Refer a proposed zoning law bylaw amendment to the planning board in accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, compliance with 40A, 3A, potential vote. So before we get too far into this, just as I briefly explained to the select board, for the public's benefit, Julie came to the planning meeting last week when we were discussing the agenda and requested a brief agenda item for what's the right term, procedural/legal step that would essentially allow the planning board to have a public hearing on the proposed zoning bylaw amendments for MBTA, correct?
Essentially, correct, yes.
Okay. And so that's the goal of tonight, and I know there was a lengthy, detailed memo attached to that is the subject of a lot of discussion and has created additional concern that we've heard from multiple parties today about the timing and the contents of that, but I want to make clear, tonight, the Select Board does not intend to discuss or deliberate any particular strategy, any particular property. We're here purely to take a motion and/or a potential vote on a procedural issue. And so could you just speak to that and clarify exactly what we're looking at, what you need from us, and what the implications of an affirmative vote would be?
Right, yeah, so there's a section of Mass General Law in the Zoning Act that protects a citizen's right to access the town meeting warrant. So typically, when a zoning bylaw is put forth by a planning board, in many towns, it's just communicated between the staff that work in town hall, and it gets this placeholder put on the warrant. But this procedural step within this law is not necessarily required, but town council is recommending that we take this step for something like MBTA communities, because it's pretty important, just to make sure that like everything that we're doing is completely airtight and legally sound. And so it's basically, the planning board voted last night 6-0-0 to submit this memo and the draft bylaw amendments and the list of 113 sites to you, so that you could then refer it back to them and say, go ahead, have your public hearing. That is what this step is.
And so Julie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, it's Barney. And so I just want to be really clear, because a couple of people reached out to me. And so our vote tonight is no indication of the select board taking any position on any of the contents of the documents that you sent us, correct?
Correct, yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So again,
And the planning board hasn't taken a position either. It's really a procedural matter.
it's just to acknowledge, it's basically the select board acknowledging that the planning board has been working on this and this is their work product so far? Or
Yeah,
what-
and they are requesting up to 6 like placeholder articles on the town meeting warrant
And I
through
read-
this memo.
And I read the MGL, and in the MGL, it says the select board, there's a procedural thing where the select board brings it to the planning board, who then can then hold a public hearing, and we haven't done that. And so I think, is that what this is trying to address, is that technicality, in essence?
Yeah, so you did do it for the ADU bylaw.
Right.
Earlier this year, was that this year?
I don't know.
But prior to that, I don't know, I don't know,
Right.
in Carlisle.
But by the letter of the law, that's the step that should be taken.
Right, so that is the step that we're trying to
So
take
nobody
with
could
this.
challenge it then and say you didn't procedurally proceed properly?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Julie, the hearing that you mentioned that the planning board wants to hold, that's an opportunity for people that have concerns about any part of the current options to come and express those concerns. And is that a open kind of community hearing where anybody can speak and they have plenty of time to interact with the planning board?
Yes, I expect that it would be. And the planning board also is meeting multiple Mondays every month currently, and they have time for public comment at their meetings currently. So the public hearing is a required legal step that will be taken, but all of their meetings are open public meetings regardless. Yeah.
So
And so
okay.
oh.
Go ahead, Barney.
Well, just again, trying to, reflect some of the comments I received. And so, is it likely or certainly a possibility that the planning board, after this public hearing, would then make some further adjustments to the proposals?
So, yeah, so during the public hearing, I expect the planning board would refine the language that's in the draft zoning, and also narrow the site selection. And then after they close the hearing, they would need to make a report to town meeting, with a recommendation.
So the hearing is the last opportunity that townspeople have to have input into what gets submitted to town meeting on November 2nd.
Yes, I believe it would be the last opportunity they would have to provide input into the motions that get moved at town meeting, yes.
And those motions will be provided to people that are going to the public hearing?
The draft bylaw language would be provided to people at the hearing. The motions would come at some point later. I think they would be very similar.
see.
But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, okay,
I'd asked if.
thank you.
Just to, because I know this is an important topic to the town, and I want to make sure everything we're doing is properly vetted. I did ask if town council could attend tonight, and I do believe town council is here. So, hello, good evening. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the motion we're considering, but we just wanted to confirm the motion itself, its purpose, its scope, in light of what we're talking about tonight. So are you familiar with the motion before us?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe I am. And as Julie, the planning director, stated, one of the very first sentences of General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, requires that the process for initiating a zoning bylaw amendment begin with its submission to the select board, which then has to, in short order, I believe within 10 days, refer it to the planning board for a hearing. This is exactly as it's been discussed so far tonight, a procedural sort of ministerial step that checks a box so that the state, when the Attorney General's office reviews the bylaw, will see that all of the process was complied with. Beyond that, as you stated, it has no bearing on the board's opinion of the proposed zoning or what it would look like, by the time it gets to town meeting in November. So, as has been discussed, this is just a procedural step so that we can send it back to the planning board for a hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay. Do you want to make a motion?
I do, but, okay, yes. I would move that to refer to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment as referenced in the memo included in the packet to the planning board in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5.
Second.
Any further discussion or deliberation? Seeing none, let's do a roll call vote with Barney being remote.
Arnold, I.
Modell, aye.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. So should we symbolically hand this back to you?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. Okay, let's circle back since we have a few minutes. Barney, I don't know if you had heard us, but we moved on from the appointments while you worked on your connection. Did you just want to speak briefly to the proposed appointment for the LSC?
Alex?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hi. As the liaison now to the LSC, I went to their last meeting and also went to a CONSCOM meeting. And Alex Para had submitted his paperwork quite a while ago. Gretchen has all of that. But each board had, first the LSC and then the CONSCOM had to vote on supporting him, and putting him forward to the select board. So that's finally been done. And rather than wait until our next select board meeting, there is a LSC meeting coming up next week. And so if it's acceptable to the select board, I thought we should vote to approve his appointment to the LSC tonight. And I don't know, but does everybody know Alex? He has a long history working on both being as a member of the CONSCOM and doing a number of other volunteer efforts in town. And so he's very knowledgeable in this area, and I think would be a great addition to the LSC.
Andy's an attorney who handles environmental cases, that's my understanding as well.
Yes.
Okay, does someone want to make
Do you want me to make a nomination?
Sure.
Okay. Except I don't remember Alex's street
He's on-
address.
He's on Bellows Hill.
Okay, so I would like to nominate Alex Para of Bellows Hill Road to the Land Stewardship Committee for a term of I think they're 3-year terms. Sorry, I should have known that earlier, but Aubrey, can you speak to that at all?
I can confirm that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see.
It's on here.
It's not in the packet.
It's not.
Or Alex, I think maybe on the Zoom, there is an Alex listed on our call, on our Zoom here.
No, I'm here.
Hey.
All right. Hey, Alex.
What's your street number, what's your number on Bellows Hill?
31.
Thank you, Alex.
Passed the test, he knows it.
He's qualified.
You don't know the answer to that, you're out.
Okay.
And it's
We're just determining the length of the term, Alex. Do you know?
I don't, actually.
Okay.
Forever.
Forever out there.
I'm pretty sure it's a 3-year
You
term.
can get in, but you
It is-
can't get out.
It is a 3-year term, I just don't know which one he's filling.
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Alex, do you know what seat you're filling by any chance?
So the charter says 10 to 12 members.
Okay, so it's public.
And
That's a lot of members.
so it's either one of the seats that was just vacant, or I think the former vice chair resigned as of the end of the last year now. So
Okay.
that would be Rhonda.
Okay. So is that a,
Might be just an additional position
Okay.
because she's already not on this list.
Okay,
It'll be a
so-
3-year term.
so it'll be for a 3-year term. So we have, Barney, you made the motion.
I'll second.
David, you seconded. Any further discussion or deliberation? We'll do a roll call vote.
Starting with Barney.
Barney, are you out there? Okay. let's-
No ally.
Arnold, I.
No ally.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are, as I mentioned at the outset, we are not going to be getting a presentation on the Historic Commission demo delay bylaw. I'll provide a brief update on that in the liaison reports. We're just going to proceed between now and 8:15 with the agenda items, starting with warrant and minutes approval. So we have one set of minutes for approval. They are the July 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes that were provided in the packet. If anyone had a chance to review.
I did.
Any comments, edits,
I had no changes.
no changes? Does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Go ahead, Christine.
I move to approve the minutes from July 22nd Select Board meeting.
A second?
I'll second. Barney did it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
No ally.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. And then, Aubrey, I don't believe there's anything else under warrants and minutes tonight. That was the only motion, is that correct? Okay. So moving on to liaison reports. I can open, I did have a call with the Historic Commission co-chairs last night to get an update on the demo delay bylaw and just, discuss them coming in tonight or when that would be appropriate. As I mentioned, they requested to come on the 26th because they want to continue to refine some of the bylaw language. They did confirm that they do intend to proceed with the article at special town meeting. Most recently, I don't think they've been meeting much over the summer. They did recently do an open house. And I was just kind of getting them up to speed with, just the whole lead up to town meeting, the importance, especially in the face of MBTA, of getting the word out, getting people educated about the bylaw itself. So we're going to work to fit them into the August 26th agenda. That's also the night we close the warrant. That was essentially the update from them. As far as they indicated, there really haven't been any substantive changes since the spring. So I don't know if any of you were following it in the spring. I think all they've adjusted at this point is just some minor legal language, but the key attributes are the same.
Did you get a sense of how many people showed up to their open house?
I did not. Did Aubrey? Did you? Or someone had mentioned. I don't think there were that many. I mean, it's in July,
Yeah,
and
it's a tough time.
yeah. My commentary to them was it's really not on people's radars. I don't think people are aware or educated about it. And again, it's the summer. We have MBTA. There's a lot of other distractions, but that the reminder to everyone is we're now 2.5 months out from special town meeting, and it's important that they get in front of us, that they begin the outreach, and get people educated and aware of what they're proposing. So we'll hear more from them on the 26th, but that was the update from that. Other updates from the committee members? I know, Christine, we've talked about a couple of things regarding the work you're doing on the committee.
Right, I'm forming a committee for, to look at standing up a framework for rental assistance and scholarships. So a number of past Carlisle residents have generously bequeathed funds to the town to disperse, and we have not had a formal framework for dispersing those funds, so that they're dispersed in a fair and open meeting law compliant way. We have a committee forming that is going to draw up that framework. So I have a charter that I've drafted. I've nominated several folks who will be approved or will come before the select board on August 26th and for approval. And if they are approved, then we will start our work in September drawing up that framework.
Good, thank you.
Hey, Christine, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
It's great that you're moving ahead on this. So for this committee, the charter, is that something you're going to bring to the select board at the next meeting to review and approve?
I will circulate the draft charter as part of the packet information, and I've also started asking the nominees for a bio, just a short paragraph bio for a backgrounder that can be included as well.
Yeah, do you know, have you had any contact? I know Gretchen's away on vacation this week, but have you had any contact with her prior about generally, we publicize that in this case, a new committee is forming to work on this and giving people the opportunity to submit a letter of interest.
So she and I spoke on this twice. That I know of, she has not publicized it, but I'm certainly open to anyone who wants to raise their hands. I'll get with her, and if anyone else wants to join our crew, very happy to put their names in front of the select board for approval as well.
Yeah, I mean, if she hasn't publicized it, I think our policy is actually that it's got to be 2 weeks, I think. Did people remember what the minimum is, and that it should have run in the mosquito? I'm not trying to slow things down, but I do think, given some past concerns about how people, get on a committee, that it would be important to follow the.
So perhaps an important clarification here is that this is not truly a committee. We would hand off this framework to whoever is going to be the committee, and they would make the awards of funds.
So maybe it's better not to call it a committee then.
Okay.
Maybe this is your working group or something.
It's a working group.
Yeah, because I think it gets confusing then about, whether volunteers being appointed to it. Because I think, wouldn't this be the case? I'm directing this to Aubrey and the rest of the board. If it's a working group that Christine is pulling together, she doesn't have to come to the select board and have those people nominated and approved, does she?
So it's not the name that matters, so even if you call it a working group, it's just how it's formed.
And
So
we formed it.
you have to be careful of making sure the select board isn't creating this. So, usually it would be a staff member if they created a group because they're doing their job and they're just asking for help to do that job, then that's
Yeah.
one thing, but it just has to be, it's not really the name as much as
I think that
making
ship
sure
has
it's
sailed.
not created by an appointing authority that's subject to open meeting law, because then that's also subject to open meeting law.
And I know there have been committees in the past where we've just, I don't know what the distinction is necessarily, where the select board has just appointed the people. Like, the ARPA committee was not a public, I
I
don't
think Aubrey hit on the central point. I can't remember, did we want this to be subject to OML or not? Because wasn't the idea that,
We do.
so you're not worried about, this is like scholarship stuff until?
It is, yeah. Gretchen
if
did
you're-
not bring this up as a needs to be publicized kind of thing, so she said go form a group, so I went and
If
formed
it's
a group.
not, if it's not a committee created by the select board, it's just how it's formed that matters more than the name of it, so we have to maybe
So
have.
you're saying, Aubrey, that it's fine for Christine to pull together a group on her own
I
initiative?
don't think so. I don't think so.
No, that's what-
No.
yeah, that's what-
It would have to be Aubrey or.
Yeah, I would say it would
You're right,
really,
you're
I
not-
would
you're not-
recommend being
I
a
think it's
staff
too late for
member.
that.
Okay.
'cause we
Yeah.
pretty-
I agree. We
We have-
really tried to create a process. You're Mr. Process.
Yeah, I think we did it, we have minutes, we told Christine to go do it, she's doing it, we got to approve them and
Right.
subject to OML, let's just be. at
But
peace.
I don't, if she's pulling together a committee or whatever we want to call it to shape the process that the ultimate committee is going to use,
Well, that's different.
that's what she's talking about, though.
That is true.
You're designing a process for, so if you end up in that process recommending that the TA form a group, and that's the recommendation, then yes, then that group could be a working group formed by an administrator, by a
So this
staff professional.
preliminary step is
Yeah.
just to create the framework.
The
for it,
process.
to ensure that the.
Okay, but that's your charter, so let's just, without getting too detailed, I think we established it, we had a select board member volunteer to create it, she's creating it, those, whatever Barney said about the notice in the paper, blah, 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 the people come, we approve the people, they have OML meetings, and then whatever the recommendation is, that would be the next step.
The only snag is we won't be able to do this on the 26th if we have to advertise it for 2 weeks.
Okay, fair enough.
That's correct.
So,
And
we have some
this
time
is a little
sensitivity?
bit like, for those that were on the board, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, when
Let's just move on.
we wanted to consider Paisley's Row at the, for the town. And we, the select board, created the transfer station, I forgot what we called it. But that, we set up a committee and whose charge was
Doesn't matter.
to
yeah.
figure out what we should be doing in terms of promoting recycling, right? At the transfer station, they came back, eventually made a report to the select board,
Right.
and then they were disbanded, and then the new actual ongoing transfer. So I think the select board does have to take it as that we're creating a committee for now.
Okay, okay.
Do you have some timing constraints relative to what you're trying to
No, just
accomplish by?
No, there's, we can advertise.
Let's follow up with Gretchen and Ryan when they're back, so we can just figure out
And make sure it's
the right process.
So
Done.
anyway, if you want to advertise it, you should get on to advertising it. If it's a 2-week notice or whatever, let's advertise it.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Gretchen being out this week.
Yeah.
It's gonna slip a little bit.
Okay, liaison reports, continue.
So before I do, I just noticed, and I was reading this thing closer, there is one typo in the minutes at the bottom of page 7 of 8. I'll just enter it to the record because Gretchen or somebody edits. John Ballantyne is noted as John Valentine.
Oh, that's a good
Which is,
catch.
a nice name, actually. You might prefer that, but
Different person.
different person.
Okay.
But
Do you
anyway,
want to move to
liaison
amend
reports.
it or not? Do we need
What's
to
that?
do that?
I don't think.
We'll correct it.
It's just a typo. So Aubrey and I had the pleasure of getting grilled by the planning board last night about the TA bylaw. And I'll cite from my memory, wasn't taking notes, I think Aubrey was, so she'll have more detailed input. But the the two things that, well, there was some dissatisfaction with it, you know, and sort of buyer's remorse perhaps, because they had supported it earlier, I think.
The planning board had buyer's remorse?
Yeah, some members did, I believe. And the two, there were some questions which Aubrey may remember, but the two central comments that I recall are, number one, and I think we went back and forth on this, that in the case of performance review or disciplinary action or some action involving the staff professional, that the select board and the other board would, I think they used the word consent. I think they had volunteered at one point, or one of the committees had said the two boards would consent or agree on an action, and in the final version, it was actually, we would consult them. So it was weaker, and they didn't like that. So that was one, and I remember we debated that. The other one was that they thought that the language should be clearer with regard to make it clearer that, for example, the town administrator would not prioritize or direct the technical work of the, say in this case, the town planner, which we assured them is not the case, but they didn't think the language was clear enough. And then Aubrey, what do you recall?
When you say the language, do you mean in the memo that went out?
No, in the bylaw.
In the bylaw itself?
Yeah, right.
Did they have an actual objection, though, when you say that?
Well, they just recommended that it be clear. I mean, they understood, some members expressed concern that a rogue, you know, it's the same old thing. A rogue TA could decide, say, Julie, go work on sorting pencils, don't do this other thing that they
There wasn't an accusation that that is happening?
No, not at all, not at all. And they acknowledged, those members acknowledged perhaps they were overreacting. But nevertheless, the sentiment I got was they would prefer that. And a question, and is, Mr. Dively's not here anymore, but I didn't know whether whatever goes to MGL has to be exactly verbatim what was voted on at town meeting. Can't change a period or anything.
I think you could change a period, but
But you couldn't.
remember, they had to put the language, even
Yeah.
the ye old language
Okay,
in,
so
because
you
it was
can't.
exactly what.
Now that it's been voted, it has to go the way.
Right,
So-
especially because what you're talking about is more of a content.
Okay, so it's a moot issue. And what do you recall?
Sure, yeah, you're spot on. I think they wanted more clarification on certain processes. I was trying to be there to be an HR representative of what the processes will look like, but I kind of got pulled into the policy questions as well. But yeah, so they want to make sure that, you know, with everything else, it still refers to our personnel policies, right? Like everything else aligns with the personnel
That's right, that's right.
policies. It's just making clear, it's just these HR processes themselves, right?
So more to the memo.
Well, helping with the recruitment, the hiring, you know, any sort of disciplinary, if there's potential termination, anything like that. They're just making sure that, you know, everybody in town hall is held accountable in the same way. And I did explain that, but they wanted to make sure that that was clear in the memo as well. I don't know what we can do with the bylaw at this point, but
That's a policy
Right.
question,
Right.
and so if you have the
Yeah.
right policies in place and they're, you know, administered correctly,
Right.
then you should be.
Right, so I think that,
Absolutely.
right, thank you for jiggling my memory. I think it is good drafting practice typically to not, if you're going to reference another policy, in this case a personnel policy, you should just reference it, not try to replicate it in the memo, because you might get crosswise with the actual, you know, so I think the memo certainly can be edited, and you even weren't sure whether we had completed, do we have a full revamped personnel policy, or we still have some words?
well, we still have some more work to do.
Okay.
So that update will be in there. I think that what will be in the bylaw can be different than what
Right.
is drafted in the personnel policies, so we can clarify that in
Right.
those policies.
And it should reference the policy by policy section, not try to.
Right, and I understand where they say, they were asking, well, what does a grievance mean, you know,
Oh, yeah, that was another
those
thing,
specific
yeah.
things, just making sure that they understand how the process differs between different departments depending on who they're reporting to.
Yeah, that's another labor law question that we could perhaps ask Donna Brewer sometime. To me, when I see the word grievance, I immediately go to collective bargaining and a particular specific action that a member of a collective bargaining unit uses when they feel that we've broken, you know, the employer has broken that agreement or violated that agreement. And the word grievance or grieve is used in the policy in a non-union sense, which maybe in English it's perfectly okay, but I don't know.
Wasn't in the bylaw, though.
No, this is all in the
Right, in the
memo. I'm
policy.
just saying, yeah, so there's some cleanup, I guess, that, you know.
And so maybe a lot of it can be addressed in the personnel policies themselves?
Yeah,
maybe?
right. So, I mean, but that's if you're ever talking to council, just generally for the policy.
Right.
My own feeling is we should avoid using the grieve or grievance in a non-collective bargaining case,
I
because
believe
it has a
it's-
very specific meaning in it, and it could be confused.
You're aggrieved by it.
I'm now aggrieved. Anyway, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other updates?
Well, there was a select board meeting that we held on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
We?
Yeah, we held the select board
Oh, we-
meeting on Monday.
We had the,
We toured the
Oh,
fire
yeah, we-
station.
Oh, okay. Oh, when
We
Barney and I had
I know, you had a
an
separate
under-the-radar
tour.
meeting.
Well, you had a separate tour of the Westford Fire Station. We
Well,
had.
you went to this one here.
No, we went to Westford.
Oh, Westford, yeah.
But because there were three of us.
It was a meeting.
It was a meeting, so we opened
Okay.
the meeting. We have minutes that we
Yeah.
will ultimately have to publish and vote on, but we
Right.
just were able to tour the facility, and it was
Yeah.
quite a facility,
Yeah,
frankly.
I think it was very nice of Matt. Was he your tour guide as well?
Mhm.
Yeah, so he did a really nice job. And we're fortunate we have a guy with such experience on
Oh.
our staff. It was great.
Amazing.
Yep.
I guess it shows you what, my takeaway was, first of all, it was pretty well thought out, even though if he did it today, it would be a little different.
right.
But it also, and I'm sure these guys would agree somewhat, that it shows you sort of what 15 to 20 million will buy. I mean, I think it cost them 12 in the day, but to me, that's like 15
14.8 in 2018.
Okay, so there you go. So I think it shows us at the upper end of our range what one could get.
I think it's gone up more than that, though. I
Yeah,
think that
probably.
fire station
I
today.
didn't
would
realize
be-
it was 14.
would be over 20, probably closer to 25.
Yeah, because it's right, fair enough.
Because I think it was 21,000 square feet or something like that. So doing the $1,000 per square foot math.
Yep, right, exactly.
But and even then, as you mentioned, it's like, well, we do this differently today. This is a modern station, but this has
Right,
changed, so.
right.
Good. Any other liaison reports? Okay. We have about 8 minutes before 8:15, so let's move on to proclamations. So the first proclamation, I attended the India-US flag raising ceremony on the town common a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday. We've done this for many years. Carlisle was one of the first towns to participate in this, and it's essentially just an honoring and celebration of India and the U.S. And it's a nice event where they bring their own flagpole. They raise the India flag. The national anthem is performed. There's some cultural events, and then they lower the flag and take it with them. So we did that, and there was we usually do a proclamation before that, but in this case, the timing was such that we couldn't do the proclamation ahead of time. So India Day is coming up on August 15th, and in the packet there was a proclamation for that looking for select board approval on. And we can take that one first if anyone wants to make a motion to, sorry, let me get in front of me. There we go. Here's the motion if someone wants to make it.
Sure. Move that the Select Board recognize and proclaims August 15, 2025 as India Day in the town of Carlisle.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or deliberation?
Have a second motion.
Yeah, we'll do the next one. Okay, let's do a roll call vote, starting with you, Barney.
Arnold, aye.
Modell, aye.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. And I'll note that was my second flag raising in 3 days. And we'll talk about that in the town report, but that followed the Carlisle town flag raising at the State House, which was a very nice
Technically,
event.
that wasn't a raising.
Well, yes, David, you're right. We should have brought our own flagpole.
I have a picture of it there. It looks
Yeah.
kind of,
We raised it.
How do we get those
Off the
pictures to
ground.
us? I was trying to pull them out
Oh,
of
yeah.
the PDF. Be nice if, who took
Would
them?
you like them? I can,
Yeah, it'd be great.
well, I don't know if I
I
have.
tried to copy them and I was.
So the second proclamation in the packet is in regard to proclaiming the month of October 2025 as Concord Carlisle Foundation Month in the town of Carlisle. And I believe this is something we've done in the past as well. I don't know if anyone has any more specifics on this one. Any questions or comments, or if someone wants to make the motion?
I'll make a motion. Moved that the Select Board recognizes and proclaims the month of October 2025 as Concord Carlisle Foundation Month in the town of Carlisle.
Second.
Okay?
Any discussion or deliberation? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Modell, aye.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes. I don't want to start the fire station early, just given public interest. So cemetery deed transfer requests.
There you go.
Let's hit that one. We have a number of deeds. There's a motion in the packet for 2, 4, 6 deeds. Any commentary on this?
I do not have any.
No.
I move to transfer land.
Hold on one
Oh,
second.
sorry, go ahead, Barney.
It's just a small spelling issue, but if you go down to the third one, deed 850,
Yep.
I don't know if this got corrected on the deed itself, but it says Barbara Harking, I-N-G, and it's Barbara Harkins, I-N-S.
Oh, we're going to lose the fire
Yes, I'll make
department
sure
here.
that that's amended. Thank you, Barney.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Really?
Sure.
There we go. We just lost her.
Okay. All right, so is that'll be amended?
Yes, that will.
Harkins, okay.
I might mean having Gretchen help.
Okay.
Just to make sure it's on the appropriate.
We can approve the deeds as amended.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Okay,
make the
I'd
motion.
move to transfer land in the public burial ground at the Green Cemetery described as deed 848, lot D 3092, grave 1 to Ann Hurd. Deed 849, lot D 352, graves 1 through 4 to Hong Mei Sang and Eric Miller. Deed 850, lot D 32, graves 1 and 2 to Michael Simmons and Barbara Harkin. Deed 851, lot D 150, graves 3 and 4 to Benjamin Gould. Deed 852, lot D 404, graves 1 through 4 to William and Vera Tice. And deed 853, lot D 151, grave 2 to Kevin and Marty Haggerty.
Mary.
Mary, sorry. Mary Haggerty, yes.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or deliberation? Seeing none, let's take a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Modell, aye.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. And then are we going to be signing them tonight?
Yes, yes, I have it.
Okay. All right, that's it for cemetery deeds. I think we're close enough, so it is.
I have one short issue since we
Please.
have 2 minutes.
Yep.
So onboarding is August 19th.
Yes.
I had volunteered with Aubrey to present a slide about basically how one can manage kind of situation we're talking about, TA bylaw, staff who report to how the boards work together and how they manage staff. And I am actually going to take my son to a college tour meeting that night. I cannot do it. I'm happy to prepare the slide, consult with you, but I need a volunteer for that night to do that part.
August 19th,
It's the Tuesday night.
next Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm planning to be there anyway, David, because of the LSC meeting afterwards.
Okay.
Like, somebody else wants to do it, I was gonna, just observe the training anyway.
Okay, so I can work up a slide with you.
Okay.
We can talk to Aubrey, so that'd be great. Thank you. And I'm sorry to miss it, because I like that, to go to that myself, but, all right, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the Tecton Fire Station presentation. And before we do that, I did want to acknowledge that John Lavery had sent around his public comment for tonight. I think we've all received it and read it. I want to acknowledge that receipt and also ensure that his public comment in the form of the email is included in the record and the minutes. So we will ensure that that happens. And so with that, I know Matt, I think I see you out there. Can you make Matt co-host? Because he's going to be doing the presentation. And then if there's any, I don't know, Chief, if you want to, Chief Deputy Chief, I don't know if you guys want to come up to the front to potential comment and question. And with that, Matt, I think you should have control if you want to take it from here.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, good evening, everybody. Appreciate the invite to the select board meeting this evening. And I also appreciate you accommodating me with remote participation today. I had a personal issue at home and was not able to be there in person, and I apologize for that, but I do appreciate your accommodations with remote participation. For those of you that don't know me in the town, my name is Matt Salad. I'm a senior team leader and project manager with Tecton Architects, and we've been working with the town of Carlisle and the fire department on a feasibility and conceptual design for a renovation and addition to the fire station. And I have a rather lengthy presentation that I want to move through quickly. We have a lot of material to cover. Predominantly, I've divided the presentation up into 4 sections. We're going to provide the select board a brief update on the in-site investigations that were conducted over the past month. We're going to review the space needs summary and assessment that we've conducted. We've provided some detail, and we'll go through sort of department by department what each of the spaces that are incorporated into that space needs assessment are and the reasons why they're part of the project. Then we'll review some additional design options. We provided some several months ago. We've since revised the space needs assessment based on the Fire Apparatus Advisory Committee's recommendations that were accepted by the select board a couple of weeks ago. And then we'll just touch briefly on what the next steps are to move the project from today to special town meeting in November. So with that, I'll jump right into the site investigations update. We had an additional scope of services provided to us through the Springtown meeting to provide some detailed site assessments of the property, including percolation tests for feasibility of expansion of the septic system, should that be required. Geotechnical analysis and borings, looking at the subsurface strata of the site and understanding its bearing capacity, where the water table is, where there's boulders or ledge, and unsuitable fill for bearing of a building. We also did a topographical and boundary survey. That work has been completed, but we haven't received the survey yet. They're still inputting that. And then we also did a wetlands delineation. And so I'll start first with the wetlands delineation. This is an aerial overview of what that result is. This is being incorporated into that site survey, so it'll be comprehensive. That'll get filed with the town once it's been completed. What you'll see here is a green line on the left side of the screen. That's delineating the wetlands. And then we have a small delineation of wetlands between Town Hall and the fire station. And this blue line indicates essentially an intermittent stream. So this is essentially within line with what's been previously understood on the site and what's been indicated on GIS. So there's no new information to provide with this. This is sort of confirming the existing conditions there on site for wetlands. As far as the percolation tests go, the Board of Health was there to witness that testing. It was noted that the existing leach field is in an area of general fill, predominantly of loamy sand, which is not suitable for a leach field. Until we determine the ultimate sizing of the septic system with this project, we won't know if we need to expand the system or not. So it's sort of leave it as is, as today is, and should we need to make changes to it or expand it, we will need to conduct some additional testing of that soil material to further analyze its suitability for use. So it's not by the spec of what we would want to see for a leaching field, but additional testing can confirm its suitability, and we would recommend doing that once we determine whether or not the leach field needs to be modified, increased, or redesigned. The environmental, we also did a phase 1 environmental site assessment. This looks at past records, including with Mass DEP, to see if there's been any areas of concern of contaminants on the property itself. This is something that's required of us to do before we do any construction work. It's certainly understandable if a contractor is digging a hole in the ground and there's lead or oil spills or asbestos and things like that. We want to know about it ahead of time. So we did conduct that assessment, and there were no major surprises that were raised. The only thing that was noted is the existing oil water separator that is in use is not currently performing as intended. And so there is a potential risk that if there is a large discharge of contaminated materials like oil or gas or diesel fuel, that could make its way through the oil water separator down into the wetland or out onto the site. That would be addressed as part of this project. And there also was a record of a couple of fuel spills back in the past. Those were addressed and cleaned up, and those problems have been mitigated. Lastly, we did conduct the preliminary geotechnical assessment. We wanted to get a snapshot of the whole area in which work could be conducted. So what you'll see is these blue circles. These are indicating where our test pits or our borings were dug. This is essentially a drill rig comes in with an auger, drills a hole in the ground, goes as deep as it can until it can't go any further because it encounters something that won't allow it to drill through, like ledge or boulders. And what you'll see is we have 5 borings, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You'll see a smattering of borings around 3 that we conducted. That was because as we were getting through some of the shallow depths, we were hitting boulders as well.
Can you,
So,
Matt,
yes?
can you go back, orient
Yep.
us, where's the existing building in that?
The existing building is this blue square here.
That is the big,
The
okay, that's my
green is
question.
indicating where the septic system is in the leach field. These are the tents at
Yeah.
the back of the site.
Okay, I got it, I got it, okay, thank you.
Yep. And so the big things are, predominantly, we were able to extend the borings between a depth of 4 and 21 feet. So 4 feet is sort of the magic number, is the bottom of our footings for a traditional spread footing. A majority of the soils seem to have good bearing capacity for traditional spread footing, so we wouldn't see the need for doing anything like piles or rammed aggregate piers. Basically a more costly structural foundation system. Boring 1, which was that one sort of between Town Hall and the existing fire station, that was done about 20-30 feet off of the eastern edge of the building, right on the apparatus, off the apparatus bays. We did encounter organics about 4 feet below grade, so any work in that area that's going to bear building, those organics will have to probably be removed and replaced with suitable structural fill in the future. And then, as I noted, CF3, those which were these to the west, we did encounter what appears to be a series of boulders. So any excavation there, we'll have to manage appropriately. Any questions on any of the existing conditions assessments?
Yeah, can you go back to the map, please? So based on that, I mean, you have these limiting factors. So you've got the wetlands, you've got the wellhead, you've got underground lines, but I guess those could be moved or, utilized. But how is the site shaping up relative to what you thought? Are there any things that have limited its use that you had anticipated when you did your first kind of proposals to us?
No. The only area of challenge, let me go back to the wetlands delineation. The only area of challenge on the site is this section of the wetland delineation. Essentially, the existing extent of paving is right on the edge of the 50-foot buffer outside of that wetland delineation. And some of our schemes we're sort of between the 50 and 100-foot buffer for where we're showing the building, and we can show you that when we get into the
So Matt,
conceptual designs.
is the green and the blue the actual wetland or the setback line?
The actual.
And you have to go inboard of that by X amount?
Correct.
Well, we don't currently have my understanding is the wetland bylaw in Carlisle doesn't have a distance from the wetland. You can build.
It's probably gonna by the time we build.
Pursuant to approval by Conscom, but you could, I don't think there's a no-build provision. Maybe someone else has more.
Isn't that what they're proposing now?
They are proposing that.
So would it be silly?
I thought it was I thought we had a 50-foot buffer right now, and they want to propose a 100-foot?
Well, again, we should confirm this. My understanding
Yeah.
is they have jurisdiction within 100 feet, but I don't think we have a definitive no-build. We have an informal policy that they've done.
I see.
Yeah, but would we really build a $10, $15 million building with an impending bylaw and not plan for its implementation? That seems pretty short.
So I think there's conversations that are to be had. It's until we have the final survey back with those points incorporated onto the survey plan, it's premature to start those conversations with the Conservation Commission. Once we have them, we'll start engaging with them and having conversations about what would be practical, what would not be practical.
Matt, can I ask you a related question?
Absolutely.
So the proposal that you shared last time had, an extra sort of adjacent building down. My question is that still in an area that would not be problematic from the standpoint of the wetlands delineation?
It is, yeah. It's outside of that 100-foot buffer.
Okay.
Our plan is to stay out of that for especially because that's undisturbed woodland. The area that we're talking about, potential encroachment on the 100-foot buffer is in an area of previous disturbance, so it's already paved. We're not making the condition any worse, and that's often seen as something that's approvable by a conservation commission. They are not under any obligation to approve it, but it's worth a conversation and a discussion to see where that would be practicable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
All right. All right, so now I'll jump into the space needs assessment. Some of this is information you've seen. We presented at our first select board hearing back in the spring, and then we've expanded on it further to provide additional information. So a little bit of just where we've been. So in February, we conducted our initial space needs assessment interviews with fire leadership, with the fire department. From that, late in February and early in March, we developed an initial program and some block diagram options. We also developed additional space needs programs. As you recall, the initial option, the sort of wish list was in the $30 million range and wasn't practical for the town of Carlisle. So we did provide additional alternative schemes for that, and we'll revisit those. We also conducted fire membership surveys of as many of the firefighters as we could, and reviewed those draft program options with them. We then held a virtual space planning charrette with fire leadership in the beginning of April, and then ultimately presented those findings the following week to the select board. And as, if you recall, these were the three options that we had presented at that meeting. The initial option, which was that wish list, was in the $27 to $30 million range, just under 30,000 square feet. We had a second option that was closer to the $10 million range, and then we had a $14 to $16 million range option. It was sort of discussed that, the programmatic needs that were in option 3 were more amenable to the fire department as a reduction from their initial wish list. So we started working from that from that initial space needs assessment as our starting point moving forward from that meeting. Beyond that, in June, we received additional authorization to proceed with the site investigations that I summarized in the first section of this presentation. Those commenced the first week of July, and we received our preliminary results over the past 2 weeks. And as I noted, we are awaiting the final the final report from the geotech, but also the site survey CAD file in the certified plot plan for that. Between the month of June and August, we coordinated and participated with the Fire Apparatus Advisory Subcommittee, and they presented their findings to the Select Board on July 22nd. From July 22nd, we received direction to provide additional design options with the Fire Apparatus Advisory Committee's recommendations, and we've been working on those over the past couple of weeks, and we'll get to those later on in the presentation. So here's a snapshot of the space needs summary that was sort of modified from that option 3 and incorporated in the apparatus requirements from the FAAC subcommittee. This is broken down into 8 categories or areas within the building: public, training, administrative spaces, space for firefighters and EMTs, apparatus and training spaces, firematic support, which support the fire apparatus, gear and equipment, building facilities, which is your mechanical, electrical room, things like that, and then any vertical circulation. Those spaces all add up to a net square footage. That's the square footage of all the spaces from the inside of wall to inside of wall. We're using a net to gross adjustment of 22%, which is a modest adjustment that incorporates the thickness of walls and chases and things like that that will ultimately be part of the building, corridors and the like. And that ultimately resulted in about a 17,000 square foot program. Now, one of the directions from the Select Board on the 22nd was to come up with creative solutions for combining space and reducing that overall square footage, and we have done that, and we'll go over those options later on.
Matt, just a quick question on the needs assessment, just so we understand the process. To arrive at a particular square foot for an item, is that just based on any kind of recommended guidelines, conversations with the chief? How do you arrive at, say, fitness room or conference room, or how much storage space you need for the fire equipment?
So conference room, as an example, those are directly dictated by the number of chairs, the number of seats we're trying to put in a conference room. There's a fixed dimension for how wide a chair takes up in a table. You expand that out over a number of seats, that gives you the size of the table, and then we need clearances walking around that to circulate. Same thing with offices. Offices have a specific set number of guidelines for what goes in the office. So if it's simple, like you see here for office number 2 for the deputy chiefs at 144 square feet, that's basically a 6x6 workstation, a bookshelf, and some file cabinets, and a couple of guest chairs. For the chief's office, you're looking at some additional file cabinets in there. Typically, there's a 4-person table where you can have a small meeting or a discussion with somebody, and then some additional file book storage and things like that. So every space that goes in here, the square footages aren't arbitrary. They're directly dictated from the use and from what materials need to be stored or accessed within that space in particular. And there's a supplement document to the space needs assessment that we had provided previously that has what's called the room description, and it goes through at length of all the requirements for each one of these spaces and what goes in that. And the combination of all those requirements is what ultimately generates the size of the room. So I wanted to add a couple of other standards and guidelines that we can reference and talk about. First is the NFPA has listed a number of primary objectives and guidelines specifically related to fire stations, both career and volunteer. And we've indicated them here involving life and property, of timely emergency response, firefighter safety and wellness, operational readiness, training qualifications, community risk reduction and prevention, incident management, and interagency coordination. In addition to that, there's a number of guidelines from NFPA, the U.S. Fire Administration, and OSHA that dictate a number of requirements, guidelines, and standards related to a fire station in particular. And this is pretty comprehensive in all the different types of spaces that they provide guidance on. For example, the apparatus bays. NFPA recommends accommodating emergency vehicles and equipment with at least 3 to 5 feet of clearance for safe egress, exhaust removal systems, and they prefer drive-through bays if possible. The U.S. Fire Administration gets into talking about the finishes that go into a fire apparatus bay. And I don't want to go through all this because we'll be here all night, but we can certainly expand on some of these and reference back to them should we need to. They also get into recommendations for physical fitness, including workout rooms, space for increasing cardiovascular strength and flexibility training. These are all things that help prevent on-the-job injuries. They also can help prevent stress-related injuries that come after a call. I've spoken to the chief about this, and one of his biggest concerns is the amount of anxiety and angst when you come back from a difficult call, and being able to go into the gym and work out and exercise that cardiovascular system to help expend some of that anxiety really actually helps reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease in the future. They also recommend specific living quarters and the requirements that go along with that, including kitchens, bunks, day rooms, and areas for decompression as well. And then they also recommend administrative areas for office space for a number of different functions. So what do we know about your building today, right? I think the majority, if not all, of the select board now had an opportunity to tour the building. Simply isn't sized to provide the adequate space needed for a modern fire service, right? The apparatus bays are crowded. All of the gear is stored on the fire floor. They're not stored in specific rooms that are ventilated and separated. And that overcrowding creates certain risk to the firefighters as they're responding to a call, as well as keeping a lot of that gear that's been cleaned and decontaminated in a space where they can be recontaminated by exhaust fumes and other carcinogens that are coming off of the gear. So that also impacts your firefighter health in the station itself. Firefighter training, this is critical to safe operations. This is something that we're seeing OSHA become more and more concerned with and find more jurisdictions with violations, making sure that we're properly training our firefighters to be out there. It's critically important. And this isn't just about the room to conduct classes, it's about on-hands training. I know, Scott, you participated observing one of these, in the field trainings that the fire department conducted, and they're quite complicated operations, and you can imagine the criticality of being able to perform those maneuvers when you're facing a structure fire or some other incident response. And then live workspaces, right? This is both for creating a sense of camaraderie and physical preparedness, but it's also a really good amenity for growth and recruitment and retention of firefighters, especially when they're volunteers. So these are just some examples that we provided in the past of modern facilities, and you toured the Westford Fire Station, which is a great example of that. Clean apparatus bays that are stored in vehicles and nothing else. Proper training facilities for classroom instruction, but also on-the-job training. Areas that are separated from the fire floor. This image on the bottom left is a compressor that fills the air packs that they wear when they go into a fire. The one that they have now in the station is on the fire floor, right? So it's requiring filters to circulate air from the fire floor into those air packs, and it really should be in its own space using dedicated air that's clean and safe. And then again, proper live work environments for the firefighters. So when we talk about some of the public spaces, right, there's just a few rooms dedicated to this, and that's allowing the public potential access to the training room. So that's a vestibule, a modest lobby, and a couple of restrooms. We've also provided the training room for the fire department, and should that be used by the public as well, that would be adjacent to the lobby. And that training room has a small storage space associated with it. our initial program, we had worked out a 50-person training room. As part of the cost reductions, that's been reduced to 30 persons. That was also part of a recommendation from the MRI report, but I would note that that will not accommodate the entire roster of volunteer firefighters that you currently have, which is over 40. So we can provide a modern facility that'll support 30 people within this program, but it won't support a single classroom training for the entire membership here at this building.
Matt, does that training room have, so it's desks and chairs for everyone, for every person that's listed, like 30 people?
Correct, yeah, tables and chairs, and then there'd be a lectern at the front of the room. So certainly you could fit more people in there if you took the tables away and just did chairs, or did tablet arms, or standing room only. So there's certainly ways to pack more people into the room should you need to, but for a 4-hour classroom training, not having a desk and a chair to sit at would certainly be challenging.
Matt, I don't know if you can even answer this, but what was the savings, I suppose, for lack of a better word, in reducing it from 50 to 30?
It was about 300 square feet. So I think the back of the napkin number we've been throwing around for a rough order of magnitude and cost is about $1,000 per square foot.
And Matt, before we get too far into numbers, because I'm sure, you know, the urge is to always say how much money is this saving, but the caveat to all this is not gone to a cost estimator. So this is, when you say $1,000 a square foot, that's just a gross number that if we have support for a particular scheme or option, it would then go to a cost estimator where we'd actually get an actual, a more refined estimate, certainly not what you get from a schematic or a final cost, but I just want to clarify, like when we're talking about numbers, these are very rough estimates.
Yep, exactly, yeah. These are nothing I would take to town meeting or advertise as the
No, of
cost
course
the
not,
project.
but how much off of, Matt, 1,000 square feet is it likely to be? I mean, you can get 90% there with your eyeball, right? I mean, I get it, but
It's more nuanced than that, especially when we're dealing with varying degrees of renovation, addition, and new construction. It's the kind of thing where, you know, if you take the whole building and say it's $1,000 per square foot, and then you reduce one room out of that,
yeah.
you don't necessarily get $1,000 per square foot back as a reduction.
No, I know
right?
that,
Because-
but I'm at the
because
macro
room-
level.
The
So-
room itself is only a percentage of the components that go into the building, right? So if we reduce a couple hundred square feet out of a training room, we're not making the
No,
mechanical systems smaller, we're not making the electrical systems that much smaller, and those are large components of the building itself.
Right, so you're not gonna right, so, but let me ask a dumb question. This 17,000 square feet, is that what it was, or, I'm sorry, something like that? Is that doesn't include the existing, that's additional too, or that's including the reno of the current?
Yeah.
Which is it?
These are not indicative of what's renovation or additions. This is indicative of what the space needs are. And then as we lay that out onto the site plan and develop a floor plan, that'll define what's sort of in the existing building, what's a new
Right,
construction.
so some of it is renovating existing building.
Yeah.
Matt,
Right.
can you
Yep.
can you back up to the photos that you had there of the new, right there? So one of the things as you talk about the square footage, I have really come to appreciate how much square footage is really needed, and especially if we're gonna keep our on-call firefighting force. Though, when we do these estimates, there's a huge variety and variability of the level of finish that is required or needed. So if you look at the bottom right there, and you look at the level of finish and detail there, that's an expensive proposition as far as the designer cabinets, the designer, things. When we went through the Westford Fire Station, I noticed there were 4 stainless steel built-in refrigerators. They're $15,000 each. That's $60,000 of refrigeration for, the thing. And I'm not I think, yeah, you probably need those, and I'm not saying you don't put in 4 refrigerators for whatever, but you may not need to do them in stainless steel and such. And I think that, if I was looking through this, I would say, we want to have the actual things we need, but we may not need to have them designer gold-plated things. And I think that you have to take that approach as you're designing this and as you're estimating it. And Matt, you're going to be the point person on that. So I don't know, just as an individual on the select board, I would feel like I want to make sure we get what we need, but I don't think we need to, we can have off-the-shelf refrigerators that we're getting at,
Right.
I'm using that as an example.
Yeah, but I would say, from my own, and I'm going through the nightmare right now, actually. MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, drives 75% of the cost. The complicated stuff is, as you mentioned, and I looked at it, and it was a nice, thank you, Matt, for the very comprehensive tour. You just think about the electrical service and where it has to be, and all the kind of plumbing of fluids and the valving and the controls of it. That's all where the big money's going to be spent, no matter what refrigerator you use. You
True.
could use an old icebox.
But all the way through, you have the ability, and I think our fire department, especially I think our chief, has done a great job of being very efficient with,
Yeah.
the type of fixtures and stuff. And so to the extent we can, have him or have
Yeah.
people involved and take that approach
Yeah.
rather than say carte blanche,
Yeah.
design whatever you want and build
No, I
this.
agree. Of course I agree with that.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to set a tone here more
Sure,
than,
no, I agree.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment, and I would just add that there's a difference in residential construction versus public commercial construction, in that when you're doing a renovation on your house, when you're doing a kitchen or something like that, square footage isn't really the driver of the cost, it's the finishes. I agree with you there. When you're dealing with municipal construction, as Mr. Bodell pointed out, the MEP systems, almost account for 50% of it, especially in a public safety building, and especially in a fire station. We're dealing with, really complex HVAC systems in order to create those safe environments in those living areas, and that's what drives the cost. Now, there's certainly premiums to premier finishes, and that certainly isn't appropriate for this project. I would be more focused on maintainable and durable finishes for a project like this that aren't going to need to be replaced often, and it can be done so in an easy fashion.
Okay.
But the finishes they're not going to be the major driver of cost.
Okay. Thank you.
All great questions. Also, when we talk about training, just another point to make is, there's certainly opportunities to incorporate active training components within the structure itself. So here's an example here, where on the back side of the apparatus bays, we have a mezzanine, and on top of that mezzanine, we've put windows and some hooks and things like that, so that the firefighters can actually do training evolutions within the space itself at almost no cost. So we always look to find ways to incorporate training into the building that doesn't increase cost. It's just a win-win for the fire department and for the municipality. In that way, they can go from the drill floor on the fire floor, they go right into the classroom and understand, what went wrong, what went better, and then go back out and repeat and make sure that they're doing things appropriately. So as it relates to training, there's been a real initiative to push for more training, and it's resulted in a decline in fire-related deaths over the last 10 years, and that's cited from the American Fire Service. So it is critically important, not just for making sure that we're saving structures and saving lives out in the community, but protecting the lives of our first responders. So when we look at the administrative offices, so as part of our reductions in square footages that we've worked through the past few months, we've had a series of office space on the wish list. That includes a shared open office that had captain's office space, an EMS coordinator, a fire prevention workspace, as well as a lieutenant workspace. We've eliminated those out of the program in order to cut costs and reduce square footage. That can certainly be coordinated through sort of shared workstations in the training room or in the day room or something like that. This leaves us essentially with the chief's office, the deputy chief's office, and an administrative assistant. A small record and file storage room that gets some of the files out of their existing offices and that are sort of out in the lobby right now. A small photocopy area, and then an office supply storage room. Most of the, as I noted, most of the office space has been consolidated elsewhere within the building as multi-purpose spaces, which is not ideal. The MRI report actually recommended including 4 individual workspaces in addition to the private offices that we've eliminated from the program. So they're actually asking us to go one step further than we were initially anticipating. Giving separate hoteling workspace for call firefighters, separate from bunking, and separate from the EMS training officer and command staff in report rating areas.
Matt, process question. In terms of, the adjustments or these reductions that you're mentioning, just have you been working with the chief and fire leadership on these, or I'm just curious if are you seeing these for the first time, or have these been part of your discussions along the way?
We're seeing them as of very recently.
Okay.
I think you had discussions with them. I think any chief who says we're going to build a fire station that doesn't have an EMS coordinator office and a fire prevention office, what are you thinking? We're cutting to the bare bone, and we'll try to make things work, but we will need to work with these,
Yep.
try to figure out how to make this work.
Right.
But this is very bare bone.
Fire prevention is the only thing on the fire side that actually brings in revenue with the permitting and all that, and he's very active on a daily basis during the week, so for him not to have a workspace, it's shocking to me.
In Carlisle.
Yeah, everywhere. But
EMS is an enterprise.
And EMS is the only other thing in the department that brings in revenue, so again, not having an EMS office. Matt and I had a conversation after the last select board meeting where he was tasked with reducing. So we went line by line, and at the end of the conversation, I said, we were already at the bare bones, so I don't know how you cut more than where we were. But he did make some cuts, and it's a little bit scary to me.
But to Matt's point, we talked about cutting, but adding an office is not $1,000 a square foot, right? I mean, it's cheap. It's cheap build out, relatively speaking. So, I mean, I'm listening to what they're saying. I think
So we need to look at these things.
But I think one of the key process points, just for tonight, is that this presentation came in last night, right? I was able to circulate it to the select board in Aubrey last night. You got it, I think, today. And really, you've been away, and so this still needs some digestion, I think, in terms of people to look at it. Yep. So,
But it's a lot, there's a flow to it.
yep, no, I know. But all right, Matt.
So one of the kinds of things that I look at is, the options where you have bunk rooms.
Yep.
If we're gonna cut all these offices out, we need the ability to use a bedroom as an office when we need it that week or whatever it is. So, like you say, we have to fine tune it.
Yep. Understood.
All right. So these are the firefighter and EMT. These are the amenity spaces for the firefighters. So in that we have a day room. We've got a kitchen and dining area. We've got a small trash room, a 500 square foot fitness room, and we've got an officer bunk, and then we've got 4 firefighter bunks. We also have a small laundry and housekeeping area for cleaning of clothes and cleaning materials for the building, as well as blankets and things like that for the bunks. We have 2 unisex single bathroom showers, and then we have what we're calling lockers and a widened corridor. So essentially, instead of having a dedicated locker room, or increasing the size of the bunk rooms to have wardrobes within them, we're widening the corridor outside of those bunk spaces and putting the wardrobes and lockers out there. It's a more efficient use of space, but it does eliminate that locker room. So in the MRI report, they did recommend a living area for 4 to 6 people with lockers, shower rooms, individual sleeping quarters, a kitchen, and a day room space. So that's fairly in alignment there. I would note that the initial program had a fitness room of 800 square feet, and so we have reduced that down to 500. And as I noted, the lockers are incorporated into the bunk corridor, and it's similar to what you would see in a school, essentially.
A quick question on this, and I'm actually asking Matt Svatek if you could remind us, for those that toured the Westford Fire Station, what was the square footage that you showed us in the workout room?
It was just shy of 500.
Oh, okay.
And it was too
And that-
small, is my
And that was the
recollection.
one that you were describing, once you had more than 2 people in there, it was really tight.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to build a culture that attracts and retains on-call
And
firefighters.
camaraderie of working out
Camaraderie.
with members of the department.
And how much, Matt, I don't know, either Matt could respond to this, at 800 square feet, would you say what, that accommodates another 2 people, so you could have 4 in there training at the same time? Working out, I mean?
Conceivably, I mean, certainly it's going to come down to what sort of equipment we're putting in there.
Yeah.
Some of those large multi-purpose machines take up a lot of square footage as opposed to a stepper or a rowing machine or something like that. So it certainly would come down to some of the equipment that we're going to provide.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yep.
And so just some images of what some of those areas that we just talked about could look like. So area on the left is a fitness room, one that has a little bit more gracious space to it. So it allows you to spread out and have some room for stretching and things like that, and accommodate more folks. This is what a larger bunk room could look like. This is with wardrobes within it, a small desk area so that you could use it as a small office or study, and then your bunk, and then administrative areas with areas to receive the public, and private offices as well. So, you know, a lot of those amenity spaces really get down to the recruitment and retention we've been talking about at this whole meeting here. And, you know, since 1984, the number of volunteer firefighters have decreased by 25%, and the U.S. population has grown by 40%. This is current as of 2020. It was published by NFPA. I encourage anybody to Google search volunteerism in fire departments, and fire departments closing across the country as a result of this, leaving their municipalities without a fire service. It's touching just about every state throughout the country, and there's another one that is closing its doors almost on a weekly or monthly basis. So this is a real struggle. It's not specific to Carlisle. It's a national challenge that everybody's dealing with. So the apparatus floors, so I think this one is pretty straightforward. We've updated the square footages based on the equipment that has been recommended in the Fire Apparatus Advisory Committee. The MRI report also recommends that the bays be large enough to accommodate today's fleet with accommodations for the future. Chief, you and I reviewed this as well this morning, and I don't know if you want to chime in on one of the pieces of equipment that was discussed, in particular the future tanker.
Yeah, so what they did for sizing was the tanker we are thinking about replacing, you know, the engine 7, they didn't make space for engine 7, they made space for something smaller than that, because that may be our future, but it isn't our current world. So when we look at it, the size that they gave us is the size for what we're going to have in the future. And that's just, yeah.
So
And if we're going to do that, we need to be very clear as to what size that really is. We'll need to be clear on that, because if being in a world where you have to buy engines just to fit the space that don't meet your needs very well is a fool's, that's just not that's a foolish way to do things. There are towns around us who have to buy engines because their doors are only so high or only so wide and all these kinds of things, and it's just, it doesn't end well. So if we're gonna do that kind of, look at every square inch kind of reduction, we need to be very clear as to what sizes we're gonna need, so we don't end up with something that doesn't fit.
Is there a trend in fire trucks toward getting bigger or smaller over time?
It was to get bigger, now it is to get a little bit smaller. For us, there's a similar thing partially because of, the people we have driving them are gonna be more used to smaller things, and we are trying to get them, our driveways are longer, and they're putting houses in harder and harder places to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's our future.
Yeah.
And so some things are gonna get somewhat smaller, but not significantly enough to design a station around that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so these are just some guidelines for apparatus bays, noting, marked walking zones, non-slip floors, and the working clearances associated with them. And as I've noted in the past, your existing bays are okay, but they're 16'8", so they're slightly below the recommended width of between 18 and 22 feet. So they're okay, but the new bays would certainly conform to some of these standards. And just a note here that overcrowded apparatus bays leads to extended response times and certainly puts firefighters at risk when they're responding. And so there's also all the supportive spaces that accompany the apparatus bays. These are, a fire station is divided into 3 zones: a hot zone, a cold zone, and a transition zone between the 2. And the idea with that concept is really isolating any carcinogens and vehicle exhaust and the like to that hot zone, circulating through its transition zone to decontaminate, and then ultimately being on the clean zone where you're safe. So it's all about reducing risk to the firefighters through that process. So it comes as no surprise that the CDC notes that firefighters have a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer than the general population, and twice as likely of getting mesothelioma and testicular cancer and a lot of others. And it runs the gamut of just about anything you can think of. They're at higher risk. So we want to make sure that we're keeping them safe when they're in those living quarters, so that we're reducing that risk. So those supportive spaces that occupy off of the bays to support firefighting operations, we have 3 storage rooms, 1 for fire equipment. This is pumps and hoses and things like that. 1 for spare gear, so this is additional sets of turnout gear and helmets and masks. We have general storage because there's just a lot of other pieces and components that go onto the fire trucks that they need to operate, chainsaws and things like that. We also have a workroom, so this is where a lot of small engine parts and things like that get repaired. This is where the tool chest for doing any light maintenance on the apparatus would be stored. We have a fire and EMS decontamination room and laundry. So this is where all of the gear, when they're coming back from a call, gets decontaminated. This includes all their firefighting equipment. So when they come back from a call, they clean the gear, then it gets stored in the turnout gear room, and that way it's ready for the next call and it's been cleaned from any carcinogens. We also have an EMS supply storage room, so this is storing a lot of the medical supplies that they would need for a call, in a drug room within that's going to have all the different drugs that they're going to have on the ambulance when we're responding to a call. We have an SCBA room, so right now they have a SCBA compressor out on the fire floor. This is going back to that image I showed previously about putting that in a dedicated space. This includes the compressor, storage for bottles, and decontamination space for their face masks and drying racks for those masks as well. We have a compressor room, so this is just taking the air compressor that they use to charge up the brakes and do any maintenance on the vehicles and things like that. That just puts it in a room, so it's not making a bunch of noise on the fire floor. It's gonna take up space on the floor, it's gonna take space up in a room, so it just makes sense to put it in a room so you can hear everybody while they're working and down there, and it's not distracting and causing issues. Then we have our turnout gear room. Again, this would be typically it's connected to the decon so that once you've decontaminated your gear, it's going right into that room and being stored. This is where, when the firefighters are responding to a call, that they'll come into the building, go to this room, grab their gear, and hop on an engine and go. We had a dedicated radio room. We took that out and incorporated it into sort of an IT space. There are some schemes where we did get the radio room back in because we had a little bit of extra space where we were able to accommodate it. And then we have a restroom within the apparatus space. And that way, when you're working out on the fire floor on a piece of equipment or a piece of apparatus, that way you don't have to go back to the clean side of the building without decontaminating to use the restroom. You can sort of stay on the fire floor and conduct your work. MRI also recommended that EMS supplies be stored in an environmentally controlled space in a clean environment, which we're providing. Same thing for fire gear. Right now it's stored out on the fire floor. We're providing that room to store the gear. They also noted that there's been a great deal of emphasis on gear and gear storage as it relates to cancer. And again, that's because once it's been cleaned, it should stay in a clean room until it's ready for use. When it stays out on the fire floor, it's being recontaminated so that you're already putting on dirty gear when you're responding to a call. And then just to note that all of these components impact those NFPA objectives that I had outlined previously. They're all sort of part of the story of what an emergency response facility should be providing. Any questions on any of that? I know there was a lot sort of in line with the presentation before I hop into the design options.
Matt, I'm not sure, did the design options, that's the sort of just overview and total kind of square footage and general cost estimate? Because I have a specific question about the living quarters and bunk rooms for firefighters.
Yeah, so we can talk through those as we get to them. We do have,
okay.
Yeah, we're certainly not in a position to make a lot of take a lot of liberties in terms of removing programs. So we did some ways of combining some spaces, but we didn't eliminate programs. So the square footage doesn't vary significantly between the options that we're going to present, nor does the cost. But I think they're good conversation starters for ways that we could combine space, or where it doesn't seem like that would be the practical approach.
Yeah, I just reflecting on what we saw in Westford and thinking about, are there ways to make spaces that are flexible so that they could potentially be, you close the door and it allows for, a private space to hold a meeting, but it's, or you have two bunk rooms, but they could be divided down the middle for additional bunk rooms if you got to where you needed them, or something like that. But if you're going to get to that later, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, I think those are all great ideas and points and things we can continue to discuss and explore. So I'll jump right into it. So this is so each scheme we sort of have a site test fit, and then we have a block diagram hybrid floor plan that shows the arrangement of the different spaces. So this is the first option. This includes our 1,200 square foot outbuilding that would store some of the equipment that was recommended to be retained by the advisory committee, but not stored in the fire station proper. So this is UTV and things like that. So that would live in the outbuilding off to the left here. And as you can see, this is the 100-foot setback from the wetland. This line here is the 50-foot setback, and then this is the wetland. I didn't update this to show the existing wetlands over here. We're not encroaching on it further than existing today, so we'll be outside of that boundary over here. But that outbuilding does live outside of the 100-foot year, or the 100-foot buffer, so that would be outside of the Conservation Commission jurisdiction. Existing building is shown here in white. And what we're doing is creating 2 apparatus bays in the bottom right. This is sort of where the steps are that go up to the front entrance currently. We have a 1-story addition with all of our living and workspaces. And then we've got another 2-bay apparatus addition off to the back here.
So Matt,
Yep.
go back to that, please. Why, since you're just moving blocks around, why not just get it out of the 100-foot zone, move it to the right, that yellow and,
I apologize for not putting the new delineation in here. If we started pushing this further to the right, we would start to impact that buffer.
well, you're impacting it on the left. If I-
It's already paved over there on the
Oh,
right.
So you think you're grandfathered in?
You would be.
Yeah, it's an area of previous disturbance.
Okay.
So that's
All right.
typically
That's
viewed
fair.
as
No,
somewhere
that's
where
fair.
you could do work,
Okay.
so long as you're not making it worse.
On the right is a septic field, eventually.
Okay.
And the right is the leach field as well, so we wanted to sort of leave that alone as much as we could.
All right, got it, thank you.
Yep. So the way this essentially works is the bottom right section, we're essentially expanding the existing ambulance bay and creating 2 ambulance bays that would exit directly out to the street. We're maintaining the existing 6 bays that are in the back here, and then creating an addition to the back left that takes care of the future tanker, car 10, and the future EMS car. And then we've got a few supportive spaces associated with that. The primary single-story addition off the back here would have your library, your lobby, a couple of restrooms, training room, day room, kitchen, and dining here. This is your sleeping and living quarters, so we've got our 5 bunks, the wardrobes out, lockers out in the corridor, and then we've got our housekeeping and shower facilities there. And then we've got our decontamination space, our turnout gear storage space, and the rest of our firematic support facilities all encompass the south portion of the plan where the existing locker rooms and kitchen are located.
So, if you've got vehicles all over the place, are they able to get to the decon? Everybody's able to get to the, like the guys up in the support bay, I guess maybe they don't need that, but how do you get, if you're not right there in the middle, to the decon room with your contaminated gear, without going through the fitness and all this other, and the kitchen, gee, I don't try to put a kitchen next to the decon room, but.
Well,
that's
these would be,
just me.
yeah, these would be separated, both atmosphere
yeah,
and,
but-
yeah. But, yeah, there's certainly some challenges, you know, we can work out transition zones to accommodate that. It can shift around. This is really to start putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Okay.
But, so putting the pieces together, is that essentially to the scale you were talking earlier in the presentation? So the fitness room is 500 square feet, whereas the training room holds 30 people. The fitness room, it looks bigger actually than the training room.
Yeah.
Yeah, this option, some of those things are a little bit bigger than they are on the subsequent options,
Okay.
best I can tell.
Yeah. Yep.
But I'm still kind of concerned, maybe I gotta turn to Matt number 2. You know, one of the things, my recollection from our tour is, you know, there's a lot,
It actually fits.
in the Westford Station, you got your bay, like, there's a logical flow from the decon room, the laundry of the decon room, you know, here you got stuff, it's like jumbly, right? Because there you got one ginormous vehicle bay, so I think you
Yeah,
can manage the
unfortunately,
traffic.
we're somewhat constrained with the site that we can't create one large vehicle bay that would allow us to create sort of a centralized location for a lot of this. That's just, it's one of the challenges with the site, and so we sort of have to pick what's the worst evil in terms of where this is gonna make the most sense and most use. And, you know, maybe it makes the most sense where it is now, maybe it makes more sense shift it over here and create a sort of a transition area between the two.
Right.
We may in the end revisit an elevator.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that could solve a lot of sins, and it could create some sins, and we have to decide which is the best option.
All right.
Okay, yeah. So I'll also add to, this includes leaving administrative space up on the second, which is certainly a challenge. There's an ADA concern with doing something like that. So it's a further, conversation that I think we'll have to have. I don't think this is the preferred option, but one that was necessary to study.
It does give you more breathing room on the other area by moving this up here. The other ones are very constrained.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you recall back to the space needs, we were initially looking at around 17,000 square feet. This was able to bring it down to 14,890. So it gives us a little bit of breathing room, and would certainly bring the cost down from where we were initially thinking, sort of on the lower end of that $14 to $16 million range. So the second option that we looked at, again, another large addition to the back, one small apparatus bay. We've got our outbuilding off to the bottom left, and then we're essentially wrapping the front of the building. So we'd be cutting into that hillside a bit and wrapping a couple of bays down to this space and reworking the grades there. One nice thing that gives us is the ability to sort of dress up the front of the building and sort of reimagine the architecture as it addresses the street front, which I think would be beneficial. So essentially, this is getting closer to one single apparatus bay. So we've got, these are the existing 6 bays here. We're creating 2 bays down at the bottom, and then this one is being a double deep drive-through as well. We've got our storage room, SCBA room, work room, and electrical room in the existing mechanical space. Up at the top of the plan, this is our main public entry into the building. We've got our admin office, deputy chief's office, chief's office. Along the northern end of the building are our bunk areas with our bathroom showers, housekeeping, and IT. In the central block here, we've got our training room, day room, kitchen, dining space, the fitness room, and then the remainder below that are the supportive spaces off of the apparatus bays. And so in this one, we were able to actually connect the decon space essentially to this outer bay and the rest of the bays here as well, and then the turnout gear right next to that. We're creating a transition zone directly off the day room, kitchen, dining space, so that the area where firefighters would be congregating during the day most, they'd be able to directly get right into the bays, and then a series of storage spaces, and then the bay restroom. This looks at taking the existing second floor office space and utilizing that as a mechanical and storage mezzanine, so that the building would essentially be fully ADA compliant with that move. Any questions on that one?
That doesn't look to me like it has all the bays that the committee recommended us having.
Yeah, it's 10 bays, which is what the committee had recommended.
So I see that third ambulance bay missing, and I see a mini pumper bay missing.
Oh, no, wait.
Is there one under the gray?
Option 2, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Underneath the
there's
gray
two.
is something, is a bay,
There's
right?
2 bays down here.
No, but I mean, under the
2, 4, 6.
SCBA
I think
storage.
there maybe something's mislabeled, because there are 10,
There are 10 spots there.
yeah, something, engine 7 is duplicated, so I think the upper left is an ambulance bay.
Yes, yeah, you're right. That was mislabeled, I apologize for that.
But, yeah.
Okay.
We could do 2 tankers.
We have to prove that out.
And so this one's just over 15,000 square feet, so again, smaller than what we had initially programmed. And then the final option, this is a more compact version. This is actually getting the new construction completely out of the wetland buffer, which would certainly be advantageous. And we're still creating the bays down on the bottom of the plan, sort of wrapping the front of the building. And so what you have here, come into the lobby, this is sort of a similar version to the one you had just seen, but what we've done is further compressed some of the living quarters. So these are what we're calling sleeping capsules. I don't know if anybody's ever seen them before, but essentially one room is a bunk, and then the next room is a bunk that sort of slots in over top of that, so you can reduce the square footage of the bunk spaces by 50%. It's really not ideal, but this is really getting down to as tight as we can conceivably get some of those square footages.
So
In terms of the remainder of the building layout, it's essentially the same as the scheme previous to it. It's just looking at further compressing a lot of those spaces. Both scheme 2 and 3, we would be, or I'm sorry, 1, 2, and 3, we'd be looking at providing additional flexible office space within the day room, kitchen, dining space. This scheme also looks at combining the training room with the day room and kitchen, so it becomes more of a multi-function, multi-purpose space, everything all in one room, with a room divider so that it could be split when there is a training going on. And this gets down to 14,492 square feet.
Yeah, so the kinds of things, you know, when you get down to that level, you lose the ability to use those bedrooms as remote workspace and things like that. And so there are actually things you lose, even if it is uncomfortable, you know, sleeping, but you also lose other options.
It looks like you don't save any money.
Not much.
I have one question, Matt, on all three. I was waiting to see all three, but why would you not, can you go to any one of them? I guess maybe the middle one. Like, why would you not, instead of the wraparound and you squeeze, and maybe this is where Brian's going, like just extend the current building straight up and make that all bay? Like, so the bays are all together, and then, you know, figure out the decon and all that other stuff as it flows naturally through.
Because
You can't get out, you can't turn around up there or something?
you can't circulate around. That would require us removing and replacing the radio tower. And we
Okay.
start to get into a lot of ledge over here, so we're increasing our
Okay.
site development costs.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
further encroaching into the wetland, and we start to get into the wetland
Okay,
protection
got
zone,
it.
that's gonna be a no-fly zone.
All right, so Brian, when you mentioned the elevator, which means the second floor, what would you put, all the office, living, the stuff like at Westford, everything would go upstairs then, basically?
That would be an option.
And so maybe for the first Matt, elevator costs $1 million, we know that, we don't like elevators, we don't do well with elevators here. But other than the elevator cost, architect Matt, is it cheaper on a construction basis to build a two-story? Or not?
I can analyze that, I can run that by my cost estimator. I would suspect in this case that it probably will result in a less expensive project. Apart from the elevator, you know, we'd be buying an elevator and a couple of sets of stairs.
Yeah.
That would increase the cost, but we're reducing the amount of site work that we're gonna be doing, the amount of foundations, the amount of underground work and things like that. So it would also, you know, all of these schemes, because of our site constraints, are broken up into several different additions. Each one of those additions, in order to maintain the fire department's operations during construction, they're gonna have to be sort of separate, like staged, phased mobilizations. So it's gonna increase the amount of time the contractor's gonna be on site, which is also gonna increase cost. So there'd be an efficiency if we were to go vertical, for sure.
Okay.
It would also take the wetlands out of play. We'd be able to completely avoid dealing with any of the wetlands. Taking it out of that jurisdiction would be helpful to the project when we go through permitting. So there's a lot of wins that come into play when we talk about doing this vertically.
Yeah.
And what effect, Matt, the architect, Matt, does this have on what I'd heard before about having to bring the second floor up to code if you do more than a certain percentage up there?
Well, this would be an addition, so I would conceivably probably still maintain that the existing office space up there would be better suited as mezzanine space to serve the apparatus space instead of having it be program space.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't understanding it was a second floor on the addition. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the second floor would be part of an addition, yeah.
Okay.
Essentially, if I went to this scheme, it would be more or less, you know, this box here. We put the bays underneath it for a portion of it, and we build program space on top of there.
And Matt, I think you said it, but I missed it. The existing fire station and the rooms that are up front with the chief's office and the conference room, would those need to be brought up to ADA code in this process? And if so, you know, it's on a different grade, wouldn't we need to get an elevator there?
Only if we're gonna maintain that as administrative space. I would recommend if we went with a 2-story addition, that we would leave that space alone as mezzanine. It sort of, not use that as office space or anything like that. That can house, you know, we're gonna need to expand the electrical and mechanical requirements of this building, and that can house a lot of that. And that would get rid of the ADA issue up there.
Firematic storage, some of those kinds of spaces can go there that's not.
Yeah, and then we'd be able to actually use some of that mezzanine for some of those training components that I had highlighted in other fire stations.
And Matt Svatek, maybe this is not apples to apples, but when we toured the Westford Fire Station, you had said that actually the one thing you wish they hadn't put in was the elevator. And I just wonder if you could speak to that.
Just because of the expense, it's a yearly upkeep, and it's expensive, so.
And you said that people just use the stairs.
Well, we'd like to be fit.
No, I mean, I think we would be the same way. We would be using the stairs, but I think if we have to have because of our site, I think it's something we need to revisit. And it may make things a lot simpler.
You mean we'd be required in terms of code to have the elevator if we had so much of the program upstairs on the second floor?
Correct.
I see.
Not, just to clarify, not because of the code, you'd be required to because of federal law.
For accessibility.
Yeah, so because this is a publicly funded project, it falls under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yep.
It goes hand in hand with the 521 CMR, which is the Architectural Access Board in Massachusetts, which is a statutory code for accessibility in the Commonwealth. Where those two laws are in conflict, the more stringent will overrule. And in fact, there's in the ADA regulations, I actually have an excerpt of it further down the slide. Section 28, CFR 35151 of the ADA in 2010 actually provided clarification in terms of fire stations and its accessibility to other floors. You know, there was a long-time understanding that firefighters are able-bodied folk and they don't need an elevator to access the second floor. But the ADA actually came back and provided clarification specifically to public safety facilities and said, for residential quarters, you can make it what's called adaptable in terms of you don't need to provide ADA compliance out of the gate for the residential areas. So they actually specify sinks, toilet fixtures, grab bars, things like that don't need to meet the ADA so long as they're adaptable and can be made compliant in the future. But they specifically say that does not exempt you from what's called an accessible path. So it does not allow you to get out of the requirement of the elevator.
Huh. Okay.
It's a very common misinterpretation of the law.
Thank you.
So Matt, from Tecton, we're approaching 9:30. Can you move to the next steps? And I think what we as a select board need to, not necessarily vote on tonight, but discuss tonight, from a standpoint of, we have these options in front of us that are all within about 1,000 square feet. They're all in a rough price estimate of $14 to $16 million. So I think that's the possibility space we're operating in. And I think the question, clearly these need refining, and we're already discussing, the fire department needs time to look at these, work with Tecton. We as a select board, assuming, we work through this process and refine it and come up with a design that everyone's happy with in that scope, is that something we're willing to support in terms of bringing to special town meeting? Versus not necessarily a specific option here.
Seems very tight.
Yeah.
To get good fidelity numbers, it seems too tight to me.
I can see getting this whole thing built, and you still are inadequate.
I want to address one.
Wait, those are two different issues I think you're talking about.
tight from the
I
timeline.
think timing is tight,
Oh,
because I
timing
know
is
how long it takes to really do a good job to get to that point. That would be my comment. But before we go there, I just want to address one more thing, which is the elephant in the room thing. Because John Lavery went to great detail, and he says, you can build what you need for $5 million. Now, and then what are you going to get for $10 million? But we're not even at $10 million. We're talking like, it's going to be close to 20 when we're done. I guarantee you it'll be close to 20. So I realize he had an extremely simplified sketch that was really bare bones. But I would like to hear Matt from Tecton or somebody just like, that's like a third of what this is. And I just want to put that to bed. I don't want it out there if, I want to address it. Like, this seems logical. I don't really quibble with anything that I'm seeing about what we need. So is he just out to lunch basically on what things cost? Because he's proposed a thing that he says is very cheap.
If I could weigh in on a couple things.
Yeah.
I don't have the full record, and I haven't dug deep into everything that he's provided, but from what I have seen, it didn't seem like an apples-to-apples comparison of the exact program square footages that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And the pre-manufactured metal building that he was providing as part of his estimate.
Yeah.
He used a case study out of Missouri from several years ago, and construction costs aren't the same as what they are. And I would say that the project that he had presented does not have a lot of the safety features and factors that we're putting into this building for health, safety, and wellness of the firefighters.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you.
I don't think there's invalidity or it's not an invalid exercise to understand where he's coming from in some of those points. I think they're all valid and should be unpacked and understood, but I don't want to say that it was an apples-to-apples comparison.
No, that's good. So back to the schedule, Chair Triola.
Yeah.
What is it that we are what is your plan of, what is it we would present to the special town meeting? Or what would we seek? Approval to proceed with estimate?
Yeah, Matt, do you want to just talk to your next steps and timeline at a high level?
Sure. So I think the one takeaway I'm getting right now in terms of conceptual development is we certainly want to see another scheme that looks at what a two-story option is and what sort of cost benefits or lack thereof would be. So I think, there's another select board meeting on the books for August 26th, and I think I would like to prepare that option and some of those cost considerations for that meeting. We certainly have another go at it on September 9th at the subsequent meeting to further refine or address any other questions or concerns that may arise from that. That gives us enough time to proceed immediately from that meeting if we have sort of a good direction, or at least we're in the ballpark to get to the cost estimator. We can continue to refine the design from there, the graphics, the messaging for the community. And then that would allow us basically from, we would get that estimate back the end of September, first week of October, and really be able to start educating the community on what that cost is and why it costs what it costs.
I think we should be looking at doing community outreach and engagement the first week of September as well, to start building that story, gathering that feedback from the community, and addressing any questions or concerns that may arise as we further develop the package for the November 2nd town meeting.
But what's the ask at town meeting?
It would be to fund the schematic design.
On the schematic.
Yeah.
So you'd want an estimate, you want a ballpark of the.
You want to know generally what you.
Generally gonna cost 18 million or whatever, and we need, what, 2 million, or what's the number?
Yeah, you need, I don't know, some percentage of that to do the schematic design and get the real cost.
Yeah.
The secondary question is, can you, looking at election, having to have an election, if we do a debt exclusion, all that, do you even have time to get that done for town meeting in the spring?
Because, well, I guess we're gonna cover that later, but
Yep.
it sounded like what Ashley said, we have to know the answer. No, we don't have to know the answer, we just have to put the ballot question out.
Yeah, but you'd want to have that ballot pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait a month and a half.
Yeah, okay. All right, maybe you can do it then.
I mean, Matt from
Probably
Tecton,
should.
from your standpoint, you've sat in on all these meetings. You've talked to all of us. You know what we're discussing, what we're asking you. To David's earlier question, this timeline, we certainly don't want to rush things, but we also know that we don't want to delay things. So is the timeline you're laying out between now and August 26th and September 9th, from your standpoint, realistic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it realistic?
Matt, could you, oh, go ahead.
Related to, tonight we've heard from the fire chief and the deputy chief, as far as, some things that may not be ideal. And I think there were some schematics up there, and I've certainly become more informed in this process and more educated, and I, really think that we need to make sure we do what we can to retain our on-call force.
Yeah.
And if that means expanding some of these things that, to really, make sure we're doing the right thing, I want to move this forward.
Right.
But
We don't
I
want to do
just-
less than the minimum.
But I don't, but I want to get it right, is what I'm saying, and I don't want to,
But I think the next step is everything from option 3 the first time to these 3 options are all kind of in the same general zone, right?
Right.
I think, and we've done a lot of work on our own, and I think now it's, stay within the scope, but Tecton needs to work with the fire department to explore these, tweak these, figure out, refine these concepts, and bring that back. Because I do think you've only seen these for a few hours, right? You haven't had a chance to really look at these. But I think the next 2 weeks really needs to be that dialogue to get this dialed in to meet the objectives that we've been talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this saying, there's a lot more of those pieces. I don't think everyone's, we're on this page, we're ready to go, and so Matt can start the next phase. I think there's still some discussion to be had, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
Discussion
I'm with the fire department?
Oh, yeah. I think that, Matt, I don't know, speak to how you would refine, how you would get to the next iteration on, say, August 26th.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is, I'm gonna go back to my team tomorrow. We're gonna start hashing out some schematics on how that can start to lay out. Concurrently, I'll set up some meetings with the chief so that we can probably have a meeting later this week and next week and talk about where some of the programmatic moves we've made recently make sense or where they don't make sense, and how we can incorporate that in, and then we'll continue that back and forth dialogue. And unfortunately, between this meeting and the one prior, between the chief and myself, we had sort of leading and lagging vacations and things like that. So we're all at the back at the table again, and we can work really collaboratively over the next few weeks to jazz that up and really come up with a supportable solution for the next meeting.
Chief, what do you think?
No, I think I think we're converging, and I think there's still some wild cards we need to think about. Where do you put this outbuilding? Is a second floor a much better idea to be, so we have some of those wild cards, but they're not. We're converging, I think, where we're gonna go. But yeah, I think that timeline sounds reasonable, whether you can get from there to town meeting, or, you know, let's see what we can do. I mean, the more time we have where we know what we wanna do and we can start the community engagement is good.
Well, September 9th is kind of the real drop dead date in terms of getting out to a cost estimator. So if you're not where you need to be at that point,
Yeah, then you just pull it.
then you kind of push
So
it
it
off.
seems to me, I mean, for the purpose of tonight, we're already overdue.
Yeah.
It was a nice presentation. It's a good presentation. I think, I agree with the chief and Matt. I think we should explore the two-story option because, you know, that seems logical. And then sort of cycle back. I mean, you would know better, but I presume we have to make time. No matter what we have on our plate, we got to make time for this in our cycle of meetings. And if they're not ready by the 9th, then
They're not
they're not
ready.
ready. But we should proceed. We need those options anyway. I mean, if we push to the spring, things only get worse, right?
But to Scott's question, does anyone on the board have any thoughts on the 14, I mean, the price range is, I view it as, it is what it is.
It is,
I think our committee, the Fire Apparatus Committee, did some really good work, and I'm feeling very comfortable that we have, you know, really reviewed this.
Yeah, that was, well, thanks. That was a question I wanted to ask you too. Does what you see meet what you think your committee wanted? I mean,
Well, from an apparatus-based
from an
standpoint,
apparatus base.
I think coming into tonight and at the last meeting, there were, you know, what we hadn't really heard a lot about in the whole process was the work-life space and all those other spaces. And I think, you know, that stuff, I kind of defer to the specifics of.
Right, but your committee looked at apparatus and bays, and does that,
Yeah, I would say this,
Meet that.
this all looks a little herky-jerky, so,
Well,
to your
it's-
point, so maybe exploring a second floor and consolidating, get in.
well, that's different, but I mean,
Yeah.
you had a fairly
The number of
narrow
bays,
mission.
yes.
The
And
number
next
of
phase, so-
Those,
okay.
those are the
It's all
number.
inside now.
And Tecton, Matt, in your estimation, is the outbuilding included?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, and that's where you put the antiques and stuff, right? The
No.
boats.
No,
The
not
boats.
antiques.
We haven't figured out the antiques yet.
Okay.
Antiques are not included.
Doesn't the historical commission have a garage?
So let me cycle back to Travis's point. I think if we're going to present this in the fall, we have to present a placeholder for the DPW
Yes,
and a general plan for how we're gonna manage all that debt, right?
that's right.
And that's what the town people want to hear.
Yes.
Right? The town people probably, I mean, I don't know, but I'm just gonna say my general impression is they trust us to tell them, we've looked at this hard, it's really needed. I mean, people understand that it's needed.
Yep.
They're not gonna do like we do, like, oh, there's a bedroom upstairs. I mean, they might, but it's not really gonna be like a big deal. They wanna know,
Yeah, we're.
how affordable is my town gonna be?
Right.
Right, that's really what we have to.
Yes, and there has to be a placeholder. We're not gonna have the answers for the DPW,
No,
but
but we have to sell in context. We're building three, we're getting to, you know, three major buildings. The
Yep.
police station's kind of on its way.
Yep.
And that's just the way it is. And in 10 years ago or some number, we made a similar pitch. We said, we gotta build a new K through 8 because that one was falling apart. And by the way, the high school is also gonna get built. And that's just what it is. And we presented the plan and it seemed okay, right?
Well, and the biggest thing that I think came out for me was how much of a cost savings having an on-call fires
Yeah,
department
right.
is for our town. It's just incredibly valuable.
I don't think we'll have a problem justifying why we're doing this. I just think they're gonna ask, like, okay, how are we gonna swallow all this debt? And we just need to show that we have a plan.
and you can't present this and not address DPW
Right,
and then
yeah.
come back in a year and say, oh, we have this.
No, that would be disingenuous.
Yes, it would be irresponsible as well.
I would hope the town would appreciate the amount of work that you guys did, that committee. You covered a boatload of data, got information from all kinds of places,
Yeah.
brought in outside consultants when you needed them, it's just incredible work.
But they
And I-
expect us to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
they,
Just as they expect you guys to volunteer your time, you know, hundreds of
This is a
hours.
quid pro quo here.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know we're running late, but what I'm hearing tonight is that there's enough general agreement to go, like,
Yeah.
to keep the the bogey on the 9th and take that next step, and we'll see where we're at on the 26th. And that'll be a shorter agenda item. It'll hopefully be more focused on a specific option or refinements. And my expectation is that Matt from Tecton is working with fire department leadership
Yeah.
to really come out at a place where, because ultimately you have to also support the station project. And that really needs to be critical in the next step.
I have one more thing, just going back to the timeline and the community outreach.
Yep.
If that's appropriate now?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Matt, from Tecton, so you said something about beginning the community outreach in September, or did I mishear that? I know on your timeline, you've got it happening in October, but did you say something about we could also start it in September?
Yeah, I think we should start having those discussions of what community outreach looks like for this project, how do we want to engage in that, and what it's going to entail. If it's a matter of waiting until we have all the information in hand to do that, then we would start in October. We'd probably be pretty aggressive about how we handle that in terms of meetings, presentations, and outreach. But if we're ready to do that and start telling the story ahead of having the estimate and the final design and taking feedback and questions and start getting an understanding of where the general public is at in terms of the project and support of it, I think that can start a lot sooner.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. I think we should map that out, as soon as you're ready for that, and figure out how we're going to reach out to people in September and start the conversation.
Yep.
So I can put together, we have, and Scott had a brief conversation with her previously, Antonia Ciarvella from our office. She's our sort of community engagement expert. That's what she does. I can have her put together sort of a draft playbook on how we might envision this process going. And then look to your feedback on how we can sort of tailor it specifically to the community.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll start working on that now.
And the last point on that, Barney, is if we meet that 9/9 milestone successfully, then I'm not concerned. We already have a ton of materials that we could roll out today around the justification and all that. And so if we have also a concept that we're rallying around at that point and we can move forward, we'll be ready to start outreach probably the week after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay.
We should get a calendar mapped out and, know who's doing what. And then just be aware that, the MBTA is also going on.
Oh, yes.
And also the ADU bylaw, which I don't know how many people have even focused on that, but
Wetlands
that's
bylaw.
out there.
Wetlands demo. Okay.
Historic demolition bylaw.
All right. So again, there's no
right.
formal vote needed.
Right.
I think it's just we'll get something on the agenda for the 26th, and between now and then, Tecton and the fire department can work to refine the designs and look at some of those adjustments we talked about. Okay?
One thing quickly, is it one of those options that you would say is a preferred, or is it too early to?
So option one allows a little more breathing room, but it means that I'm stuck up away from everybody, which is not ideal. It also, the select board probably needs to decide how much risk they want to get in terms of ADA, because it doesn't fix ADA. Fixes it for everything new we build, but the old stuff we had will remain that way. So that's what I would say off the cuff, but hopefully we come up with a little, like you say, solving some of these problems about where things are.
My
and all
personal
that
feeling
stuff.
is the extension, the one that way extension, if it's a two-story and you can put those living spaces up, you just buy yourself so much more flexibility.
Right.
I mean, you
So
just do.
it's worth looking at.
And it's definitely worth, I mean,
Yep.
I have elevator, where do they go? I have PTSD from our elevators, but the fact is, you gotta have elevators, like, this is the 21st century, you gotta have an elevator. So you just have to be at peace with it.
Make T-shirts up for Dan.
But once you get past angst of an elevator, it opens up a lot more architectural possibilities.
Well, yeah, and again, we're running late, but I do think you'll end up with more elegant design
Yes.
in that option.
Right.
Okay. All right, Matt, do you have what you need from the select board? And
Yes.
okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
guys.
thank you all for attending, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll roll right into the special town meeting discussion around logistics. And I think what we had talked about in the planning meeting, right now as it stands, we're looking at, obviously, the MBTA bylaw, a potential fire station bylaw, wetlands, demo bylaw, and were there a couple procedural things? I don't recall, but
Yeah.
3 substantive, so the,
Four substantive, I think.
okay, right, 4.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we want to discuss, and again, a planning board mentioned they might have 6 articles under the MBTA bylaw, so that could end up being a lengthy and complex.
The MBTA will be a day.
So the one question that we should discuss is, do we just do MBTA on Sunday and schedule that
Can I invite
standalone?
Mark to come up?
Yes, I would say.
Yeah, come on, Mark.
Well, Mark is a proponent, he has a plan, right?
I'm not sure what you remember.
Well, he's a fellow town meeting study committee
Yeah.
member.
All the incoming and outgoing logistics of all these attendees for MBTA, to me, it seems very disruptive to try to shoehorn articles before or after it.
I think it needs to be its own, that is my belief, that, I mean, the reason I asked Mark up, maybe he can articulate better, but the idea was, whether it's one day or 2, if you say MBTA is gonna be Sunday,
Yeah.
like, that's all we're doing, and we're gonna do it till it's done.
Yeah.
Like, that's it,
Yeah.
right? So,
Set up all the equipment,
right.
we're there.
Right, and if you wanna leave, you can leave, it's okay, but that's what we're doing, we're driving till it's done. I think where we mishandled the last town meeting is quite frankly, we dithered, in my opinion, but nevertheless, we just tried to pack too much stuff into the, we had unrealistic expectations, you're coming in at 1 o'clock or 12, whatever it was, and you're gonna be out by, 4. Like,
Yeah.
we just have to say, you're gonna be there.
Yeah.
Like, pack a lunch, you're gonna be there, right? And if you wanna show up, that's great, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
If we get done early, then fine, we're
Yeah.
early. And then the second night would be a more conventional
Yeah.
town meeting where we have the other 3 articles, which themselves are fairly meaty.
It could easily be a couple hours.
Well, it's easily gonna be a couple hours.
Yeah.
Let's try to keep it, like what we might consider, and this was a comment, was 7 o'clock start time leads to late nights. Like,
Yes.
can we say like 6:30, like, can we experiment with?
6?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's sort of an artifact of pre-COVID when commuters had to get home. Like, you don't really have to, because most of you are not working anywhere but home. So maybe it's 6, and then we could be out of there by 9, which is a reasonable time if you have children or you want to get to bed or whatever. So that would be, I don't know, Mark, don't go away yet. What do you think? He's trying to shrink down. He's thinking it's done like
Yeah,
that.
I think MBTA is gonna be a long session.
And a complicated, like the
Do
logistics.
you agree, isolated into the day, for one day, and
Yeah, it'll be, I can't imagine it being less than 4 or 5 hours.
unless people are so sick of it by then, fine, whatever.
So the question was raised, is that one town meeting, or do you have to schedule special, if it's 2 different nights?
Isn't it
two
still
different-
one town meeting, isn't it?
So,
If you scheduled it, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't Concord, they have 4 days, it's all one town meeting, isn't
does the select board generally support that approach of just MBTA on Sunday, everything else on Monday?
Yeah, but what happens when it runs over?
it? You can't run over, you're there
You
till,
just tell them that article
your
is gonna
sleeping
go.
bag.
that article's going till we're done.
There's gonna be a point, though, where it's gonna be,
People are
I
gonna
mean, if
leave.
you're there 5 hours,
Madness.
you have to come to some resolution,
You have to come, right.
and that's where,
That's what they do, they lock them in a room
Yeah.
and say, you don't come out until you have a solution. I think it makes sense to have it Sunday.
I mean, you set the expectation, again, we have to decide when start time is. We're not doing food trucks, because that didn't seem to work out, but,
yeah.
and part of that reason, I'll just remind everybody that given it was a Sunday, people had a lot more you have a lot more options on the weekend about how you're gonna feed yourself and stuff, so, if you know it's gonna start at 1,
Yeah, have lunch.
have a good lunch. If you're right, just plan on it. And there are also, the other part of it is if they're expecting 1,000 or something, they have to provision the gym.
Yeah, there's a lot
There's
of,
a lot more logistics that have to get done. And, then the second day, you don't have quite so many. You just say, well, let's have a conventional town meeting
Yep.
in the auditorium.
It's those logistics that have
Yeah.
me concerned about setting up a second day. It's going to be a huge push, even for the second day, right? It's,
Second day,
Not an
you revert back
inconsiderable-
to the auditorium. You just have the.
but there's still AV, and I don't know, that's.
That'll already be there, right? I mean, it will have been set up.
well, it's gonna be I think it's gonna be 2 days. I don't see all this being done in a
I think
day.
it's going to be 2 days.
There's no way it's
Okay.
done in a day.
Concord goes, what, 3 or 4 days?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, but they have.
And some people come only for the things they want.
Right.
Right, right.
So-
I also think when the MBTA ends, you're not gonna be able to roll into another article.
Oh, yeah.
Because people.
No, people are gonna be exhausted.
leaving,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna have remote gym, we're not gonna,
Yeah,
it's gonna
yeah.
be, people are gonna be venting positively, negatively,
Well, I'm
whatever.
getting out. I have a feeling, though, if it drags on, that people will just start to leave. Like, they'll say their piece and then they'll leave. But then there's also the political, and it may work to our advantage, is if you get the big crowds out for MBTA and everybody said their piece and they've had their thing, and they just say, I can't show up on Monday.
Well, I
You
don't-
know, then you kind of flow.
Yeah.
That's not what we're shooting for, but.
No, that's not.
No, we want participation.
But I would think you also don't want people that haven't been paying attention or don't really have an interest in one or multiple articles that are being presented to just, well, I'm gonna sit here and vote.
I mean, I would say this, right? We put in hundreds of hours anyway a
Yeah.
year, and so do all the many committees and volunteers. And those other people, if they can't put 8 hours, I don't care if it's 2 consecutive days, you can't give the town 8 hours of your attention for these big issues, then you don't care that much. Honestly, you don't care that much.
No.
Yep, we have a representative town meeting right now.
Right, that's right. 1 out of 20. You've given your
Um,
vote. If you don't show up, you've deputized the proxy.
Barney, do you have a comment on this topic?
I would definitely support Sunday afternoon being the MBTA and Monday night being a more conventional town meeting night for us. And the only smaller thing I have to say is that I think also, or not smaller, one is smaller, one is important, which is, the small thing is we should definitely, though, build in a 15-minute break during the MBTA conversation. If it is gone 2 hours and it's clearly got a long way to go, we need to build that in for people, and because we will lose people if they don't have the opportunity to get up and move around or go to the bathroom or, whatever. And the more important thing, I think, is, and I'm not quite sure how and who does this, but I think we really need to be working carefully with Wayne as the chair to manage all of this, particularly Sunday. So that's my comment.
All the AV and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll find out what we need to do. I don't think we need to vote on anything or make any motions tonight. We'll find out, I think maybe on the 26th, maybe there is something to be done. I'll defer to Ryan, and if you could just socialize that to Wayne and get any,
Oh, in terms of logistics planning?
or just like, do we need to set the dates?
Oh, yeah, we have to set we
Yeah,
have to
I
set
think
the
we,
second
yeah,
date,
I
'cause
think we.
the first
we
date's
can
been
vote.
set, right?
Yeah.
Are
I
you
don't know what-
closing the warrant? I think you should.
We're closing the warrant on the 26th.
I mean, do we take a vote? We could take a vote now, or we could take a vote then. I think we should vote the second day and then.
Yeah.
Yes, I do
make it
too.
official.
Do you want to just do it on the 26th? I don't see there's any downside.
Yeah, because we're closing the warrant. I mean,
Yeah, we'll just do it all in one.
Now, if any other, that leads to another question, which is if somebody comes out of the woodwork, like, in the next 2 weeks. I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen, because it probably would have happened by now, but,
Well, we'll just have to,
yeah. I guess the warrant's still open. We don't have to accept it, though. Just because the
And I
warrant's open
think,
doesn't.
Isn't it the case that we can, as a select board, reopen the warrant if we want
I'm
to?
not thinking of that. I'm thinking of saying, sorry, even though the warrant's open, we just can't take it. I mean, if it's some small issue, then
Somebody
okay,
comes in
but
with something new,
anyway,
gotcha.
we'll deal with.
Citizens petition, I don't think you
Not
can,
worry
can
about
you?
that.
I don't believe so.
Anyway, well, let's address that on the 26th.
Yes, I agree, I agree, let's go on.
But for now, it's the ones we've discussed, and I've heard nothing of anything else. All right. Lastly, town administrator report.
Okay, great. So, I'm not Ryan, obviously, so I'm the Assistant Town Administrator report. So just a reminder, next Tuesday during the day is the Professional Development Day for all staff. So that includes all town hall staff, that's all department heads, and then some deputy department heads if they're available. We'll be doing a lot of annual training, including cybersecurity, harassment training. We're going to give a tour of the library and the police department, and we'll end with some more professional development training and some ice cream. So it'll be a good, a good ending, but it'll be great to make sure everybody's up to date with their trainings, but also feeling like they're, on the same page with professional development. And then, as we've talked about, the volunteer training, also that Tuesday at 6 o'clock that night. So that will be fantastic. And if anybody can attend, it will be recorded. And so folks can watch that on YouTube if they miss it. And just another reminder, new town hall public hours, a reminder especially that the town hall is closed at noon on Fridays. If you're here to pay any taxes, you can submit it in the mail slot. I did add to the packet a memo from the town clerk about potentially needing a special election if the fire station design funding requires that.
Yes.
So I wanted to keep that. Let me just pop that up real quick.
Right. No, it's 35 days, 15 days. We're going to need to be aware of that.
So that's something to discuss.
I think we should also, Scott, sort of set that next meeting.
Also, the Center Park water's on, so that's great.
Hey.
And then you can dismiss that first paragraph after knotweed disposal because I was so excited about the water chestnut pool that I wrote about it twice. So the knotweed disposal is actually a pilot plan. It's brought to us by the SC, the Transfer Station Action Committee, the DPW, the Fire Department. It'll be at the transfer station, their specific spot, which is on this map. Let's see if I can pull that. So that is where folks can do it. There are 3 dates available for people to drop off knotweed. This flyer, which will also be circulated publicly, making sure that folks aren't mixing this with other yard waste, and making sure that when you do dispose of the Japanese knotweed, that it's just that as well. So, so this is a good pilot program, and so if this is a great disposal method, they hope to continue that. So on to the actual water chestnut pool that I wrote about. It was like a successful event. There were 29 volunteers, including families and children. They paddled 15 boats and removed an estimated 32,000 plants, which is amazing.
Really a well-run event. My goodness.
And with that in mind, just jumping ahead to some thanks, the Carlisle Conservation Foundation wanted to thank some staff members as well for helping them make this happen. Jim Hall, John Mativier, Sarah Wasserman, and Noel Beland also all helped make this possible. We talked a little bit about the Carlisle flag in Boston. So Carlisle's flag is now officially in the Commonwealth's Great Hall of Flags. I know most of you were able to attend that, which is fantastic. So for those who didn't join, on July 29th, the Select Board joined Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, State Senator Michael Barrett, and State Representative Simon Cataldo to formally accept the flag on behalf of the Commonwealth. You were all joined by dozens of Carlisle residents and staff for the ceremony, and visitors to the State House can now see Carlisle's flag flying proudly. So that's really, really fantastic.
Can I interrupt with a procedural question?
Sure.
There are a bunch of deeds that were previously approved with a typo.
Yes.
Are we to sign all of those?
Yes, from the notes Gretchen left to please sign them. There might be a blank space for somebody who might, well, she said to just leave it blank.
Oh, with Kate
In her
Reed?
note, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she said to leave Kate Reed's
Yes.
blank. I did hear, yeah, I saw.
And you signed me.
Sorry.
Good.
We can fix, she can fix it when she returns if we need to, it's fine.
Should we can we hold off on these?
That's fine, absolutely, absolutely.
Don't sign those?
We've signed a bunch, but these are starting to get different. They're
Get
different.
a little murky,
Okay,
no problem.
very good.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. And I know Scott mentioned about the India Independence Day celebration, so that's great. That happened on July 27th on the town common. And thank you for recognizing August 15th as India Day in Carlisle, so that's great. HR report and appointments. So as I mentioned, we have a couple new COHS fan drivers, and we will have the new finance and HR assistant. We will also have a new DPW driver and laborer that we just sent an offer letter to, and expected to have that signed, so I'll have that update for the next meeting. We are still looking for a DPW mechanic, so that's a hard one. That's a tough, I think a lot of towns are having a difficulty with hiring that. Updates that Ryan will provide when he returns, more about department updates, capital project updates, Community Preservation Act projects, and building construction projects. Upcoming topics, as we've talked about a lot, the operational policy updates will be updated or be provided August 26th meeting. Hopefully there'll be time. I know there's a lot going on. It's not anything, it's more, making sure we clarify what kind of employees we have, and make sure there's just a lot of clarity. So when we process payroll and everything, it's just a lot clearer for our finance department of where they land. And then, as we've talked about, closing the special warrant at the next meeting. This next approval request, I didn't receive any further information than what's in the packet. I was anticipating some further information, but it wasn't. It's a request to waive fees for 2 street opening permits submitted by Mass DEP. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Unfortunately, all I have is that, so I didn't know if you.
I mean, I read the email chain
This is the guy doing the boring?
with the Board of Health.
Just waive the fees, what's the difference?
I don't even know what the fees are. I couldn't find what the fees even were. So what do you
2
need?
well installations.
So you need a motion and an
Motion to
approval?
waive the fees for the street opening permits, and there's just.
Apparently they have no way of paying if you don't already have like an official PO with the state or something. I don't remember what it was, but
I move to waive fees for the following street openings to be submitted by Mass DEP: well installation, Church Street; well installation, School Street.
I would second that.
Discussion deliberation. Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Modell, aye.
Snell eye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye.
Okay, good.
There you go.
I just wanted to give one more staff recognition. Deputy Chief Andrew Booth also, he successfully completed the Senior Management Institute for Police. It was a 3-week executive training program at Boston University, and that brings together senior law enforcement leaders and experts from academia and the private sector to focus on leadership, organizational management, and strategic thinking. This achievement reflects Deputy Chief Booth's strong commitment to professional growth and to the future of the Carlisle Police Department. So congrats to him. As you're aware, Ryan's still on military training for the end of this week. August 15th, in 3 days, is India Day. And then the regular board meetings are still scheduled, and the fall town meeting, well, at least that first one is still scheduled for November 2nd. And then we have the upcoming agenda for the 26th.
So far, but we gotta make room, we have to make room for the Tecton.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. We should recognize Sarah Wasserman too, also. She got 15
Yes.
grand for the brick.
Which is great, our first one.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you for stepping into 2 roles this week.
Aubrey, can you always give the TA report?
Is it because I'm quicker than him?
Very efficient, yes. That was good.
Can I ask a question for the public's benefit? I know typically we would have an updated packet today with all the materials that were reviewed. Is there an opportunity to post
Yes.
some of these documents
Absolutely.
that were presented tonight so the public can access them?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I'll
if
make
we
sure
could,
to
if we
take
could
care
do
of
that,
tomorrow.
that would be great. Apologies for not having that done today, but we're working short-staffed.
Being 3 people is a lot, but I'll get through the week, but I can post
Okay,
that tomorrow.
thank you. Okay.
Community input?
Any last community input? I can't see the board, so I don't know who's out there or what's going on.
A bunch of people, or at least,
Okay. Seeing none, take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor, roll call?
Could I say one thing?
Oh, yes.
Hurry up.
Thank you. Kim, yes, can you just,
I don't even know if this is the right place to say it.
can you just
and-
state your name and address, please?
Yeah, my name is Kim Tresh. I'm 125 Meadowbrook Road in
Yep.
Carlisle. I just wanted to make a comment on MBTA, everyone's favorite subject.
Yep. Sure.
I'm just concerned that, and I'm talking to the planning board as well, that the planning board is working very hard diligently to do a very difficult thing that the state has mandated.
Yep.
One of the proposals that they've done is this sort of scattered sites approach that people have voted on. But I think the way they've set it up has been confusing, and they may have backed themselves into something that they didn't intend. And that was that what people might have thought they're voting on scattering sites throughout Carlisle to make it sort of less dense. But they chose to do a sort of pre-1962 sort of idea, because these houses could be zoned as were already zoned as two, you could vote to put 2 houses on these lots. And then, so it was sort of low-hanging fruit to choose as a quote-unquote scattered site lot. But in the end, what it's ended up being is these neighborhoods have a bunch of houses close to one another that could potentially end up having 4 units on them. And they accidentally may have created very high dense neighborhoods by choosing this. And so people think scattered sites is actually less dense and scattered throughout the town, but actually it's an incredibly dense group of housing. So I just wanted to throw that out there and make people think about what they're actually voting on because it's all these things are very complex and difficult.
Great. Thank you very much. I know we've been receiving a lot of comments on the various strategies, so thank you for expressing that. Okay.
And thanks for your work. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Thanks for sticking around. We had a motion to adjourn. Second, roll call vote.
Arnold, aye.
Modell, aye.
Snell, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Triola, aye. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Great.